the Bomas of Kenya in the meeting that coincides with the one-year anniversary since the 2022 election. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka and the majority leader at the National Assembly Kimani Ichung'wah will lead their forces in ironing out the issues on the table. Apart from Kalonzo, Azimio is represented by DAP Kenya leader Eugene Wamalwa, Malindi Member of Parliament Amina Mnyazi, Nyamira Senator Okoh Mogeni and Minority Leader Piondai. Yesterday, Azimio Party appointed Jeremiah Kioni to lead the legal department in the negotiations. In a statement, Azimio leader Raila Odinga said Kioni's role will be to help the chairperson from the Azimio side, Kalonzo Musyoka.
We picked the team with a full understanding that the country is on a wrong trajectory. Anyone who thinks otherwise is being delusional. With this reality in mind, we have put in place a technical and legal team to support our delegation to the dialogue. Consequently, we have settled on Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, the Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, to head the legal and technical team to the talks.
From the Kenya Kwanza side, apart from Kimani Ichung'wah, there are Senate Majority Leader Arun Cheriot, Bungoma Woman Representative Catherine Wamblianga, UDA Chairperson and Embu Governor Cecily Barile, and Iyala Member of Parliament Hassan Namar. Ichung'wah has continued to emphasize that the issues they will discuss are those that concern the citizens.
Nimewaeleza ya kwamba kama mnataka tuongee, tuko na shida ya 2/3 gender rule. Kina mama wamekuwa wakilalamika, na ni kweli kwamba wanafungiwa nje. 20 to sort out. Tumekuwa na matatizo na CDF. CDF imechangia mali kubwa sana katika maendeleo ya Kenya, hasa kwa mambo ya masomo, mambo ya basari, mambo ya mashule yetu. Nasema tunaweza kujadiliana mambo ya CDF. Tunaweza kujadiliana maneno ya NGAF, tunaweza kujadiliana maneno ya oversight fund ya Senate, tunaweza kuongea hiyo. Hiyo ni mambo ambayo inahusu wa Kenya na maendeleo yao. Hiyo tunaweza kuongea.
Odinga, however, insists that the Azimio is ready for negotiations to focus on the high cost of living, changes to the Electoral Commission (IEBC), the investigations on the results of last year's elections, freedom of political parties, and various issues related to the constitution, dismissing the claims from the Kenya Kwanza side that Azimio is aiming for a handshake.
I want to reiterate once again here, Azimio is not interested in handshake. We don't want to shake anybody's hands, particularly those people whose hands are tainted with the blood of innocent Kenyans. But we have agreed to negotiate in good faith, as we have mentioned, so that we can be able to move our country from where it is today to a peace, so that justice can finally be our shield and defender.
And President William Ruto is expected to conclude his 5-day tour of Mount Kenya today. The head of state will be heading to Nairobi, where he will be launching a hospital, before heading to Kisumu, where he will be launching the construction of affordable housing units. Later, he will be in Thika Town, where he will launch a water project and similarly affordable housing units. These Azimio leaders have criticized the projects that have been launched by the head of state, saying that they had been launched by retired President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Launching projects, some of which were completed more than 2 years ago by the government of President Uhuru, including the Keno Marwa Road, which, as you all know, was practically complete by the time of the general election. Some projects, like the Kiganjo KCC in Nyahururu, were already launched nearly 2 years ago by the then Minister for Agriculture, the Honorable Peter Munya, who is here. This regime is yet, in fact, to complete any new projects of its own.
This is Kenya, we are on our own.
Meanwhile, President William Ruto says his government has been able to stabilize the economy by paying most of the country's debts that were totaling to 300 billion shillings.
Tumekata deni ambayo ingekuweko kwa bilioni karibu 500 tumeondoa, kwa sababu tunataka kuweka taifa letu katika msingi thabiti. Na ndio nataka niwaeleze ya kwamba uchumi wa taifa letu la Kenya tumeidhibiti.
I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. And hii mambo utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanyan.
Amen. Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It gets over.
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes.
What the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom?
I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
Always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today, very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that sisi ni ng'ombe za baba, which means that you are willing to be milked dry.
You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
The Situation Room.
Good morning and welcome to Wednesday in the middle of the week, and let's see what the roads have up to offer this morning. Not much in terms of traffic. Different parts of the city looking pretty good right about now. There's a little bit of traffic starting to work its way onto Jogo Road, and more than that, we're seeing a lot of traffic on Landis going out towards the Kamkunji roundabout. We'll see that continue for some time, even as we get closer towards the start of traffic hour. All right, on the Thika Superhighway, not much happening right about now. We'll be fine, at least until, the next half hour or so is probably likely to show us something different. Coming off of the northern bypass. Not much happening there either. So it looks like early pickings for traffic today. We'll probably see some of that traffic that is happening on North Airport Road build towards the eastern bypass. We've started Wednesday off right. Let's keep it just so. In the meantime, let's talk on Spice FM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Why is this table so cold? Surely, what is wrong?
C'est le table est froid.
Le table est froid.
Very good.
Pourquoi?
Je ne sais pas. Ouais.
Hata mimi je ne sais pas. Surely. Ai. Mambo iko vipi lakini ndio?
Kwangu? Salama kabisa.
Umewaacha wako sawa?
Nani?
Uliowaacha kwako.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Walikuwa sawa? Very good. Very good. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Happy Wednesday. Me?
Yes.
See, I'm here.
Okay. That's enough.
That's good enough, my
Basic
friend.
minimum requirements met.
I am here.
Check.
Okay?
Okay.
See, I was requested to
Be here.
be here.
Okay.
I'm here.
All right.
Hiyo maswali ingine
Tuachie Mungu.
tuachie tu Maulana. Let's just say Maulana. We have a guest today joining us. He's been here before. Arnold Maliba is a public policy analyst. He's our guest host. Arnold, good morning.
Morning to you.
Changamka bana, what is it?
I'm just putting in the tea I've done out here. So the process of ingesting it takes a little bit of time. Okay.
Yeah. Takes, like you're a Kaslobana like this.
Well,
when you come a Loria Leyland.
I'm aging, so.
Oh, please.
So the metabolism rate is
slower.
You can metabolize.
Once it catches up, runs like an old turbo. So.
Umesikia hiyo? Once it catches up,
runs like an old turbo. Okay. How are you doing though?
I'm doing fine. It's exactly 1 year since we went to elections on this day. So all of us, not all of us, a number of us have got TBTs. Actually, it's a Thursday, so it's one of those.
Today is Wednesday.
Really?
Yeah. it's not yet Thursday.
I'm then probably moving very fast. I was hoping
that turbo.
I think you need to inject that turbo into full nini, because kuna vile.
Normally we talk about throwback Thursdays. So what about Wednesdays?
There's something about Wednesday.
It's WCW. Woman Crush Wednesday.
Right. That's I don't know.
It used to be that like 15 years ago. I don't know what it is today. Things keep changing.
There is a whole series to that. Yeah.
Of WCW. Or the changes.
Each day has got something close to a TBT.
There's MCM, Man Crush Monday. There's Tuesdays. And then there's WCW.
What's Tuesday?
Oh. You wouldn't know, would you?
See now, my mind is.
You're trying to think. What is it for Tuesdays, right? Right.
It's, I think, Take Me Back Tuesday.
No.
There's something.
No.
There is actually.
Nah. It goes with the day. It's tease for Tuesday.
Take Me Back Tuesday.
Okay. Okay.
Something else.
People, please tell Arnold and Ndu what happens on Tuesdays on social media.
Actually, this
hashtag for Tuesday is?
This is what we say. Memory Monday. Take Me Back Tuesday.
So all those are memories.
Way back Wednesday. Throwback Thursday. Flashback Friday. Send Me Back Saturday. And So Far Behind Sunday.
Okay.
Clearly not in Eric's book.
Sips tea.
Clearly not. All right.
Well, let me tell everybody what we'll be discussing today.
Let's do it.
Today is Wednesday. And you've said Wednesday is what? Walk with me Wednesday.
Way back Wednesday.
Okay.
So it should be WW.
Anthony has answered you. Okay, so what shall we be discussing today? Geoffrey Munari is the CEO of the Universities Fund. Now, we have seen the Professor Munavu report on education, fees shocker, and the university funding model quagmire. He will be here. This is a man who has been at the helm of the Higher Education Loans Board and now is at the helm of funding universities. And he will be joining us at 7 a.m. He's the man who should completely understand how the university funding model now is going to work with these proposed changes. That is at 7 a.m. At 8 o'clock, we'll be joined by two people, Patricia Joseph and Kevin Mabonga. Patricia is the programs manager at Katiba Institute, and Kevin is the head of communications at the same Katiba Institute. We want to talk about controlling power, why we must respect the constitutional term limits. Why is Katiba Institute concerned about respect for constitutional term limits? Allah?
Out of the blue.
Is there something they know that we don't?
Somebody do something.
Yeah. They'll be here at 8. They'll answer that question. And then at 9 o'clock, we'll be talking to the General Manager, Medical CIC Group, McDonald Kangen. He will be here to talk about the cost of healthcare, why a comprehensive health insurance is important. What is a comprehensive health insurance? Do you know?
I've heard of it.
You know, in motor vehicles, comprehensive does not cover the driver.
No,
I just don't get it.
Everything else but the driver.
How is it comprehensive?
How is the car moving without the driver?
You need a personal cover for that.
So why call it comprehensive?
Comprehensive implies that it is complete.
Yes.
Just the word alone.
But then we assume that you're taking care of everybody else, and then you should be in a position where you can indemnify yourself.
Makes no sense to me.
Anyway, what would be the business sense of covering everything? There must be a little bit some gap that allows business.
They can live. They can put something. No, those ones that they say, riot. It doesn't cover riot. It doesn't cover windshield. It doesn't cover. But surely, if you're comprehensively insuring your vehicle, and the person who is in the vehicle driving and moving the vehicle is not covered, maybe I don't get it. Anyway. We'll not be talking about general insurance. We'll be talking about health insurance with this boss from CIC. 17 minutes after 6. Ednah has done like that, so the live stream is up. If you're online, please let us know where you're tuned in from, and we will do like that. Say hello to Eric, to Ndu, to Arnold Maliba, and to Ednah. City is away. He is enjoying himself. At least I hope so. I hope he'll not be coming here to tell us, my body was used to waking up. And I kept waking. Man, I just hope he's enjoying himself. Okay, 18 after 6.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Cloudy conditions at 13 in Nairobi, highs of 22. We'll see lows of 13 today. 13 would also be the low in a mostly clear Nakuru at 14, going to highs of 25. We'll see highs of 20 in a mostly cloudy Nyeri at 13, and it's 12 and mostly clear in Eldoret, highs of 23 and lows of 11. It's 23 and mostly cloudy in Mombasa, highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 28 as well in Malindi, where it's partly cloudy at 25. 19 and clear in Kisumu, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 27 in Kakamega, where it's cloudy at 18. 18 and cloudy in Kampala, highs of 28 and lows of 17, and 30 will be the high in Dar es Salaam, where it's partly cloudy this morning at 23. It's 6 degrees and clear in Johannesburg, highs of 18, and 29 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Lagos at 26. Kinshasa is cloudy at 23, highs of 32 and lows of 20. Wednesday afternoon is sunny in Beijing. It's 29 degrees. It'll go to highs of 32 and lows of 25. And it's mostly cloudy at 18 in Paris with highs of 24. 24 will also be the high in a mostly cloudy London at 14. It's Tuesday night in New York and it's partly cloudy at 22. Coming into Wednesday, we'll see highs of 27 and lows of 20.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Yeah, good morning to people who are online today. Sorry, just had a moment of glitchness there. Okay. Hi, greetings from Melbourne. CT should come back as he is. New batteries are overrated. Really? Gladys Waivaka says, good morning. Today passed my regards to my significant other, Agri Momani. Yes, you did mention that his father had passed. He's going through a lot of depression, hence my request for a mental health expert. For sure, it can't be an easy thing to go through. Sure.
Gladys,
Thoughts going out
to your
to
family.
Agri this morning and the rest of you, for sure. Sir George Gashoiri is tuned in from Manchester, says, keep up the good work. Good morning to you. Good morning, wonderful work team. Keep it up. We'll sit back and enjoy. Karibu Sana, James Wangi. The 2000, Joe, Alex, I don't even know what to call you. Jalix. I'll call you Jalix 2000, at least for today. Says, high five to the three of you. Adelaide, South Australia is tuned in. Well, we're going to greet CT anyway, and that's all right. Greetings, CT, Ndu, and Latiff. Arnold is here with you on the ride with you, Geraldine Ocheng. Joe Mungai, hi, Ndu, Latiff, Mze CT is on vacation on the seaside city of Oregon. Okay. Too, all right. Good morning, tuned in from on the road. That's Bristol Nagila. Super Spice, God bless, good morning. Yes, Anthony and Design, we've seen you. We understand now what Tuesday is about. Stephen Minor says, good morning. Kindly address the Wasingishu Finland scholarship saga. Yes, we saw quite some of that yesterday, and people are having conversations, and people are angry about what's going on. James Sekento, the man who announces himself from Kerarapon, says, good morning. Good morning to you too. Hello from Las Vegas. You know what they say about what happens in Vegas. Good morning to you, Jacob. Teacher Bunde says, hello to you, watching from Gong in Kajiado. Brian Otieno is tuned in this morning, streaming the best breakfast show on the planet. The planet. Samuel Juma says he's tuned in from Finland. We see all of you this morning. Karibu Sana. Thanks for joining us.
Karibu kila mtu. Oh, it's time for the proverb.
It is.
Oh my goodness, I completely forgot.
That what?
That there is time for proverb. Oh, lo. Hiya. Now, this one is one that City has given us before, so let me not go with that one. All right. We're still in those three countries. Which ones? Niger, Mali. Burkina Faso, and Mali. Okay? Unlucky or bad things come to one's mother. Lucky or good things will also come to her. Bad things come to one's mother. Good things will also come to her. What are they saying?
Everything comes to you
at its own time.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's good for the goose is good for the geese.
Gander. The word you're looking for is gander. It's good for the goose, it's good for the geese.
It's also good for the duck.
That's exactly what he was looking for.
Exactly.
Anyway, we shall see what our guests will be thinking of this proverb today. But what do you think of the proverb?
I'm actually thinking that whereas that proverb is good, I just think that in the spirit of the day, we should actually have given it a Kenyan proverb. And
because
today we are marking 1 year since we had an election.
So what's so significant about that?
Oh, what's so significant is that it's normally a ritual that we do after 5 years. It's quite emblematic. So it's one of those days when we honestly should actually have a flashback, sit back and look at it. That's why I'm thinking some Kenyan proverbs like kuja kwa ground should be discussed. No, when we are told mwesha huko kwa ground, it's a proverb, a Kenyan proverb that really means that you've not sorted me. So we shouldn't go so far. So that we look at some of these things,
Sawa, next year.
Yeah.
You come with a proverb.
I know that would be too many years away, midway.
Next year, when you're commemorating another, you'll come with a proverb. Sour.
Headlines on the front page of the Standard 1 year later. On August 9th, 2022, Kenyans trooped to polling stations and made their intent known. The battle was between hustlers and the elite, between a bottom-up economic model where subsidies will only be awarded to production. A year later, we begin to look at the promises made versus the reality on the ground. So we'll look at the details of that in a bit. A journalist accounts in the day Nairobi skies were darkened. That was August 7th. And looking at one journal's expression of what he saw. Cabinet shifts plan on sugar companies. Okay, that'll be fun. I bought sugar yesterday. I almost cried. Tears. You know, tears. Okay, so...
How much is it going for?
250 shillings a kilo.
What?
You heard me.
Whoa.
You heard. So, and that's the lowest from the brand with the lowest price, eh? Okay, so those are some of the stories. A very, very interesting story also that I want to share. That would be my first story today when we get to it. I'll tell you about that as we go along. But on the front page of the Daily Nation, how juniors bagged 600,000 shillings each per month in allowances. It just gets better every day.
At how much?
600,000. 21 employees at the Department of Public Works each pocketed 617,285 shillings monthly or 20,294 shillings daily, assuming they worked 365 days, which they did not. Let's assume that they didn't work the weekends, so maybe bring that down a little bit. They collectively drew 155.5 million shillings annually in travel perks. The amount is nearly 20% of the entire department's wage bill. Eyebrows up, alarm bells ringing, red flags waving. What is going on? And so Public Works will tell us what's going on here. Back to Bomas, where it began. Today, representatives of President Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga converged for talks to end a lingering post-election crisis at a venue where a year ago the warring factions scuffled prior to the declaration of poll results following a tight presidential contest. The dispute has persisted since. So back to Bomas today. A judge who blocked Ruto's taxes twice has been moved to Malindi. Do you want to put 1 + 1 together? It's up to you to be conspiratorial. So this is again, Cabinet abandons a plan to sell 6 state sugar millers. The reasons as to why, we'll look at that. Fury over
This cabinet, how many times has it abandoned this plan?
This will be...
I thought there was another conversation still about the privatization, and they said 6 sugar millers will not be privatized.
Yes.
They discussed this again yesterday in Sagana.
Yes, they did. So we're going on 3 now. So,
okay.
Fury over Come's protest deaths claims. Police Chief Japheth Come claims bodies paraded in morgues were not victims of police killings, but opposition leaders term his allegation outrageous and insensitive to grieving families. I mean, we can get grotesque, but then there's grotesque, right? Who would want to do that? Really?
Opposition leaders.
Eish.
According to Come.
All right. State is holding on to 272 billion shillings worth of devolved functions. So, in other words, the state is holding the money that should actually go to the counties and is not letting go. I'll go into the details of those stories later.
Okay, let me tell you what's on the Business Daily. Private investor to run national oil fuel stations. So the cabinet met yesterday and the cabinet decided, let's do this. This National Oil Corporation, let's break it into 3, but I'll tell you more about this. The government will hand more than 100 petrol stations owned and operated by the National Oil Corporation to a private investor in a rescue deal aimed at shielding it from collapse. The move is part of a restructuring process that will see the state-owned parastatal, known as National Oil, split into 3 subsidiaries under one holding company. The government will then hold onto the strategic assets through 2 subsidiaries, but allow the downstream market entity, which will control the fuel stations, to be run profitably by a private investor. This private investor is not taking shares in the company. The private investor is basically just being given petrol stations. Petrol stations in strategic locations. Remember, this is National Oil.
Yeah.
You operate.
Just take
then we shall do a profit split. That is the deal. 100 plus.
How sweet is that?
What do you think of that, Arnold?
I'd really love to look at the stations and then know how the share split is. I think the biggest problem normally with such plans is that we lack management. Outsourcing management would actually be a better option. I'll give you an example. You know, Mumia's Sugar Company, for the longest time after its establishment, was not run. The management was outsourced to a company, a British company called Bukatet. And once Bukatet was actually kicked out and then we got into the mainstream way of doing things, it didn't take 20 years before it
Things
closed
fell
shop.
apart.
What was the deal with Bukatet?
When the country established the farm, Bukatet came in specifically to manage operations. So the management, when you talk about the operations, the management and everything else was a function of a private company.
So how are they getting paid?
Of course, a share split on
profits,
on revenue. So everything else, it remained a parastatal for all that time. Then when we moved on and said, of course, we've got a State Corporations Act and we've got laws on how we can run. At that particular time, we were moving away from the management of state corporations, from outsourcing management. And then we moved out, the Bukatit's term ended, and then we went to the way we do recruitment in this country. It became quite difficult. So within 20 years, Mumias had actually called it quits.
So, in this particular deal for NOC, it's the same kind of thing. Only this time it's not a management contract. It is, well, you can call it that.
They're calling it an investor. So
because the investor comes in, the investor puts in their money. Okay. So what they're supposed to do is put in money into those stations, refurbish. You see, NOC is now completely dilapidated. Put in money into those stations, make sure that they are modernized, then make sure that you brand them nicely. It could even come with a rebranding exercise. So inject cash into this. You have 100 petrol stations. You have not spent a shilling buying land. You're not spending a shilling on all those things of applying for licenses and all. You're just putting in money into operations. And then you get the mafuta, you sell the mafuta. We talk about revenue split.
I think that makes sense. Rather than have assets that are lying unutilized, you know that sometimes you could buy a very cheap car. But then the money you put in could actually be twice the cost of the car you're putting in before it runs. But you probably love the brand. For guys who love Mercedes, you might actually love the older version. So to actually bring it up to speed so that then once it moves around, guys think, okay, these vehicles were the it then. You've put in a lot of money. So I think it makes sense because for NOC, not so much comes out of it. When you talk about any station you're going to visit or you live to actually fuel, it's not one of those top 3 names you are likely to drop.
It isn't. It isn't. But let's not forget that in just a span of about 15 years, NOC received a lot of money from taxpayers to refurbish it. The National Oil Corporation that we see today, when Kiraito was the Minister for Energy, got a lot of money. This is a strategic. It helps to stabilize the local oil prices. So let's pump in money so that NOC is able to operate. We have all these stations. It can command 30% or so of the market. Where?
That for me is actually the worry with allowing, walking away from privatizing the sugar millers because the problem with such programs in the past has been that if they are not, the decisions are not made premised on market principles, then it just becomes a money hole where we are putting in money and there's little to come out of it because the factors that are making those sugar millers not be competitive, if they are not addressed, it's not about the ownership actually. I've actually seen even Mumias is listed there. When all of us know that Mumias is a PLC, in law it's not, the government does not control it. They control less than 20,000 or rather 20% shares. So practically, and in law, Mumias cannot be a blue number plate company like the others that are actually listed there. But when we're going to put in money, we've got the COMESA laws that have actually allowed sugar to come in cheaply. Our agriculture is so expensive that the cost of producing sugar here doesn't make sense. And then the EAC protocols, the common market protocols, you can bring in sugar through Uganda, rebrand it there, and then bring it here. The same way we see with so many other products where just because we have got the EAC framework, common market and other laws that allow movement of goods, we've got a common port when you're bringing common customs. So once it comes in, you might not allow it here for obvious reasons. Then it goes to another country, then comes back here. It's the same reason, for example, like milk. We don't talk about these things. Milk, for example, Kenya is number 4 in milk production in Africa. Uganda is not even top 30, but Uganda exports milk here. Lots of it. So there's too much to play around, some externalities that we need to sort. So just holding on to it will not solve the problems we have today around those companies. We will just be putting in money and then it doesn't work out. So long as sugar production costs are as high as they are, even if government holds on them, we are going to have a case, the KPLC case, where KPLC does a lot of social projects for government and then doesn't get refunded. Then how do they get around their money to remain afloat? Is actually to do those other things we don't like.
25 to 7, let's take this quick break. Take a look at the traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, it's then going closer to 7 o'clock, and this is where we see some action in certain parts of the city. It's heavy on the Thika Superhighway just past the Garden City Mall. Traffic is bumper to bumper. These service lanes are looking good as you come back towards that Outer Ring Junction. In and outbound traffic on the Thika Superhighway is starting to look pretty busy. Now, the Northern Bypass, not too bad. You'll be fine coming into Ruaka, Kitisuru, and then on to Limuru Road. You're all right there. We're also seeing some movement right around the Pangani underpass. That bottleneck is going to cause some traffic as you're getting out then towards Wangari Maathai and then towards Pangani. On North Airport Road is also still looking pretty good right about now. Jago Road is also starting to pile up. We saw some movement on Landis, still continues to be just now. The Southern Bypass is all right. So is Mombasa Road, actually. You can get onto Mombasa Road, out towards Uhuru Highway, into the city and out towards Westlands without too much of an issue right now. Fog is low in some parts. If you're heading out west, you want to have your fog lights on and slow down just a smidgen so you don't get into any trouble. Let's talk in the meantime on Spice FM, KE on Twitter.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Stories as pastor gets 50 years in jail for defilement. These stories are bothersome, but they're extremely important for us to share because the number of children that we see being abused, being defiled, increases by the year. And unfortunately, the numbers of the stories far outweigh those who are actually brought to book for what they have done. A local pastor and a German have been jailed for 130 years combined for defilement. James Juguna Courier, who used the name of God to prey on minors, and Thomas Scheller, a 71-year-old pedophile, were yesterday found guilty by a Milman court. Their stories are different. Their crimes committed at different times, but their fate and sins were similar. Scheller was also found guilty of human trafficking. The court ordered Joguna to spend 50 years behind bars, while Scheller will leave jail aged 152 years if God keeps him alive. According to this story by Kamal Madhoni, the magistrate Caroline Jaggi jailed the German for 81 years after convicting him for 3 counts of human trafficking, 2 counts of committing indecent acts with minors, and 3 counts of minors pornography. Juguna's ugly story cannot be complete without the voice of the teens he defiled. One of them told the court that religion has no meaning and that she sees the shepherds of Christ's flock as fraudsters, sex pests, and deceivers of souls who prey on the innocent and the poor. That is how she sees those who are the vanguards of religion today. When Juguna, whose name is now listed in the Black Book for sex offenders, remember a couple of weeks ago when we talked about this? This now has taken effect. Launched by Chief Justice Martha Koome, defiled boys for the first time. When he defiled boys for the first time, he told the innocent victim that the fluid was the blood of Jesus entering and cleansing them. When he defiled girls who attended his church in Bondeni in Kajiado, he claimed that he intended to build a covenant with them. And when he was done with his heinous act, he would tell them that that was the oil from God. Juguna would have gotten away with the wicked behavior if it were not for the fact that one of the girls got pregnant. Now 23 years old and a mother of a 9-year-old son, the woman told the court that she has no motherly connection with the boy as he is a constant reminder of what Juguna did. She narrated that it is difficult to trust anyone as the pastor also sodomized her brother. When Juguna discovered that she was pregnant, he told her drugs were he bought her drugs, claiming that she had worms and demons inside her body. Another victim testified how a friend invited her to Juguna's church, known as the Firstborn of the Holy Spirit. One Sunday, she went to the church without her friend. After service, she remained for dance practice with other children. There were about 5 kids that day. She recalled, Juguna sent them to take drums to the store. Inside the storeroom was a curtain dividing the two. The man asked the children to go to different parts and gave them anointing oil to drink and apply some on their faces. He asked them to repeat the Lord's Prayer and asked the girls to remove their clothes and to get on the beds where he was to make a covenant with them. He then defiled them one after another. When he was done, he threatened them not to ever tell anyone. He then called the boys and ordered them to defile the girls. Horrific stories of what happened.
Aye.
It did not take Justice Jage too long to administer this sentence on these 2 gentlemen, and it was just very, very difficult to read some of those. But these are things that have been happening, and these 2 gentlemen now have been sentenced to pay for their sins. Imagine the trauma that these young girls and boys have to live with for the rest of their lives. Some of them not so young anymore. A 23-year-old girl, at the time that this happened to her, she was 14. And now, 9 years later, is living every day with the memory of what happened to her. And many would say that the years given to these 2 gentlemen is not enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for the case of this German, Thomas Scheller, in mitigation, his lawyer, Peter Ombati, had urged the court to consider that the accused has mental health challenges. The accused person suffers from manic depressive psychosis that manifests as bipolar disorder and should be treated as a mental case. He said, adding that Kuria had been receiving treatment. Oh, this is Kuria. The Kuria Njuguna had been receiving treatment at Mathare since 2005.
Yeah, I don't think he's all right. I think he's mentally disturbed, but he's not the only one who is suffering from bipolar. Not everybody who has bipolar goes around defiling children. So, hey.
Still, it also speaks beyond the person, the monster that is the person now we're talking about.
Yeah.
There's also failure for us as a society. We let those children and minors down because if he actually was taking medication, it was a mental case, he then was not a person who should be allowed to actually have run a church and specifically be the person that is taking care of people who are vulnerable. So I think as a society, over and above, of course, we will speak about justice having been done, but I think there's still more to it. We need to gap up, ensure that we do not allow such gaps where then people who could end up doing that.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people, and those cases are out there.
How do we speak to our children? For example, these things came out because this girl got pregnant. The rest of them had been sworn to secrecy, and the swearing-in ceremony for this secrecy was fear. It was fear that they were told, if you do this, you will be in trouble. So imagine if the physiological process of pregnancy did not take place in this girl. Nobody would have ever known what was going on. At least not at this point. Maybe later. So how do we speak to our children?
How do you vet these kind of things?
How are there comfortable enough spaces where children are, if something like this happens to a child, that they will then be able to tell somebody in a position of authority or care or guardianship over them that look at what is happening? But the fear overrides any other kind of comfort.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't even tell somebody else.
And also this child can see that the parents have actually trusted, the adults have trusted this person.
Exactly.
Right? So you also feel that, do I really have something that I can say against this person?
I think from a protection level, we already, the justice bit of it has been taken care of. But we talk about coming up with protection mechanism. That's why I said, first of all, as a society, we really need to speak about issues of mental health.
Yeah.
Why I'm saying that is that this is incidental to an issue that we didn't manage well. Issues around enforcement and policies and how we look at that way before, because even as we speak about the children who actually were victims in this and their parents, just remember that if you get into the isms that are there today, somebody will look at that as victim blaming. So from the societal end of it, is that number one, we should never have allowed a mentally unstable person to run a church, and the one to actually access children. I know this will actually border on marginalization, but probably we need a register of people who actually, especially one who actually is on medication, who's gone to hospital. There needs to be a tracker on them, so that then when you're doing vetting for anyone who's actually running a church, it will be something that you can actually fall back to. It's too many ways around it. Looks like it will cut on both ends, but it's important. We as a society let down those children. Two, of course, the conversation about sex is important, especially to minors. We need to go beyond the cultural way of looking at sex, especially when we're talking about minors. Literally, the people of my age figured out these things on their own. And even when you were in school, the teachers who taught you were adults, yes, but somehow they still were stuck to the traditional way of talking about these issues. So, issues we need to talk about, but it's multifaceted. Parenting.
Crazy.
And then, of course, the other bit of it, allowing people who shouldn't be there in the first place. So the self-regulation bit of it, especially on religion, has failed because as we speak today, we have got, I think, we're almost hitting 500 on the Shakahola issue. So self-regulation for churches and the religious sector has failed. We might really want to skirt around that issue, and matters God, people really want to be careful around it and tiptoe around it, but we cannot be talking about 500 people plus dead and we want to make that normal, as in not a single terrorist attack has come closer to that.
Not in this country.
No, not in this country. So around religion, it's a conversation we need to have, and no one is opposed to the freedom of conscience, religion and worship, but then we just need vibrant checks.
We must have regulation
to ensure that we are not allowing such like cases. And by the way, you only have got one Shakahola that has actually come to fore.
We don't know what else
probably
is happening.
If you were to have quote unquote a forensic audit to what has happened in the past, you might actually be surprised.
Tell us a story, Arnold, from what's in the papers. Do you want to commemorate August 9?
No, actually, I have the Standard. I don't know why it looks like what we were talking about commemoration. It's a year later, talking about since we went to elections. That's the Standard today. They are talking about the numbers of votes that are made today possible. So probably I'll just give a little bit of a view to the numbers, because it's important to look at numbers. When you look at the absolute numbers, you sometimes then are able to tell the story differently, because when it comes to politics, somehow numbers really don't matter. In this country, we know how to count everything. We count money, we talk about how much has been stolen, literally everything. Then once it comes to votes, we have got a problem. So on the front page of the Standard, the splash is about 7,176,141 votes that William Ruto got. Of course, that then makes it brings the year. So we are looking at what UDA or Kenya Kwanza is trying to do, talking about the economy, agriculture, the promises and everything around that. So in that particular spirit, I'd just like us to remember that, number one, 22,120,458 people registered as voters when we went to elections. That means, and then of course some interesting breakaways that we love to talk about. Out of that, only 8,940,753 were youth. That is 39.84% of the people who were registered as voters then. 16,106 people were cleared to run for office. Remember that those 16,106 were looking for a position out of 1,882 positions that fell vacant on that night. Of course, we had 4 people running for president. We had 266 running for governor. For senator, we had 342 women rep. We had 361. For members of parliament, that is 2,135. And a whopping 12,998 ran for MCA. IBC employed 510,770 personnel. 500,000 people to take care of about 16,000. Just to break down the people who ran for office.
No, to take care of 22,000.
Yes, we had
22 million.
Temporary staff. IBC had 500,000 people on that particular day. But
to service 22 million people.
Well, yes, to service 22 million people, but largely also the people that were running were only 16,000.
Yeah, those ones are only 16,000. But the important person on that day is
normally the
million.
voter.
Yes.
So for the people who ran, I'd really love us to talk about these numbers because it's important. Later on, we only had 1,292 women who ran for office on that day. When we talk about 2/3 gender rule, you realize that we didn't so much comply. We're talking about 16,000 people running, but only 1,292 women were on the
for
ballot.
all the positions.
Yes. Then we had, you could actually give and take when we get to the youth line. Then we had 11,638 men running. Then if you come up to another sub-cohort, we're talking about just 3,879 youth running for election.
Wait. Arnold, your math is not mathing. 1,000 something women, 11,000 something men, but the total candidates are 16,000.
3,879 people who are categorized as youth.
So
of course,
youth are not men or women?
Well, for purposes of categorization, we really talk about special.
Separate. What is he saying?
So, but so for the voter turnout, we had a 64.77% voter turnout in 2022. That is relatively about 14,327,421 people who voted out of the 22 million people who are registered to vote. But then for me, what is significant is that in 2017, we had 78% voter turnout. But this year, a significance. What's the difference between 78 and 64? That's about 14%. So it's quite a significant fall on the numbers. But IBC has not explained. We've not even cared to ask why.
Are we looking at percentage or at the absolute numbers? Because you said let's focus on the absolute numbers.
Well, both.
It was 78% of 18 million people.
Yes.
And 67% of 22 million people. What's the difference in numbers, in actual numbers? And the number of people who cast their ballots?
This is the assumption that if you got 78% out of 30, whatever, whether the test was out of 30 or 50, it's still the same. These absolute numbers still. Because a cut could be 30, and if we are going to actually round it off and get a percentage, as in if the questions are 30, if the percentage is 78%, and the next cut is out of 40 questions, and you get 64, it's still a drop. Percentage are also absolute numbers. It's important to talk about that. So from 78% in 2017 to 64%, it's something that we really also need to think about. Why did the voter turnout go down?
Why did it drop after 5 years?
Yeah, it's important to talk about that.
What is the most significant thing about the numbers? Because you said, let's discuss the numbers. Yes, those numbers.
When we're talking about the numbers, is that then you realize that about out of the 22 million, we have got about 8 million people that didn't vote.
Yes.
As at the time of going to elections, we had about 4 million people who had not registered as voters.
And they were qualified.
And they were qualified. So, and seeing that the election was so close, the difference was about 233,000, you realize that a third of the voters did not vote. Didn't turn up. But then look at the number of people who are offering themselves to run for office. I don't know what 16,000 out of 22 million really means. It's a very small percentage. Yet sometimes the whole society goes down for this small number. 16,000 people, We are 22 million voters, registered voters.
Yep.
Even at turnout, we are 14 million.
Yep.
But still, if you were to work out 16,000, you realize that a lot of us are out here probably qualified, or probably politics is quite restrictive to other people. Because why would only 16,000 people in a country
because of various factors I can see. All right. So one, let's start with the number of vacant positions. 1,885. 82,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
If we start with that, then we can see the 16,000 making sense for the 1,882. Why? Because there's a vetting process. Remember, there's a political party vetting process. So those that are 16,000 are a fraction of those who had expressed interest.
Yes, remember, out of those 60,000, we've got about 5,000, close to 6,000 who are independent. Because this is the year we had a big number of independent candidates. Yeah.
So you can see there's out of the 10,000 or so people who were not independent, they had been vetted. It's not 16,000 is not the number of people who had expressed interest in positions of leadership. It is the number of people who had gone through some form of vetting process and found themselves on the ballot.
Yes.
Okay. Already from the presidential race, we know how many people had expressed interest initially, and then we ended up with only 4.
That's why I still feel that we restrict the pool of choice for people. I know 16,000 is a big number for a choice of just 1,882, but I'm still looking at relative to the number of registered voters. It's still a very small. I've not done the maths on the percentage of what 16,000 would be if you were to compare that to 22 million. I still feel it's a very tiny fraction. It's a small pool to choose from.
Yeah.
But I'm arguing that maybe not, Arnold, right? You see, by the time you are getting to the ballot, there are several stages and hoops that you've jumped. From wanting to express interest and reading the ground and the people telling you, you stand no chance, to being able to pass through the party nomination process, however corrupt or skewed it is, to being able to pass through the requirements of law to get into the ballot.
The requirements
so tell you, maybe it's about 25,000 people had expressed interest in wanting to be leaders.
Initially, when we were going to election, I think about 100,000 people had expressed interest at different level, both at political party nomination process, almost 100,000. But I hold it that 16,000 is a small pool to make a decision for a nation with a population like ours, because the Constitution, I think Article 38 says that voting, being part and parcel of this process, should not be prohibitive. It shouldn't be difficult. By the way, however much you try to make it look like it should be a contrite process, look at the outcome and the process. There's a little bit of numbers also we need to look at before we move on. Men, elected people now. I'm talking about elected people. We had 1,336 people who are men, qualified as men. Assuming, actually, IBC here, in the post-election report, they are using the 2 categories, men, women, and youth. So those guys who are men and they are over 35 or over 34, we had, out of the 1,882 positions that were vacant, 1,336
135 and above men
were men, using the IBC categorization. Then women, we only had 114. So that when we talk about the issues around Article 27.8 and the issue of 2/3 gender rule, you realize that the problem starts way back at the nomination level. Somehow, even as a society, then now you probably appreciate why it's become so difficult, even for Parliament to pass that law, even though it's been there 5 times. Over the last 10 years, gone to Parliament, and it keeps on flopping. You see that reflecting even on the way voters come out. So, out of the 16,000 people that turned up to vote, people voted for 114 women, and then for the youth, just 317. So those are also numbers that we need to think about even as we plan going forward, and even as you go about targeting. If we were to deal with the 2/3 gender rule, for which I believe is actually an important thing, we didn't put it as a decoration in the Constitution. It needs to be worked out. Furthermore, women constitute slightly over 50% of our population.
Yep. And slightly the same, over 50% of the voter. Okay.
Yes, yet they are not being given a fair chance.
Not being given
the decision. Yes, Because when we vote for people, we are giving people a chance. It's giving, whatever way you look at it.
So the people are not electing
women sufficiently. Because so if you only elected 114 women in the last election, excluding the women who are youth.
It would be nice. I was hoping to hear when you talk about the numbers, then you also point out what are some of these areas that could have been barriers. What are those obvious barriers or not? But we'll have the conversation as we continue.
But probably on the same, if you...
It's time for the news. So let's get into the news and then we continue the conversations. Good morning. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Vibes Radio.
Good morning, this is News. I'm Dennis Aseto. President William Ruto is expected to conclude his 5-day tour of Mount Kenya region today. The head of state will be heading to Nairobi, where he will be launching a hospital before heading to Kisumu, where he will be launching the construction of affordable housing units. Later, he will be in Thika Town, where he will be launching a water project and affordable housing units as well. These as Azimio leaders have criticized the projects that have been launched by the head of state, saying that they had been launched by retired President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Launching projects, some of which were completed more than 2 years ago by the government of President Uhuru, including the Keno Marwa Road, which, as you all know, was practically complete by the time of the general election.
Meanwhile, President William Ruto says his government has been able to stabilize the economy by paying most of the country's debt that were totaling to 300 billion shillings. Speaking in Nyeri County, where he commissioned the Kenya Cooperative Creamery's Kiganja factory, Ruto further said that the government will be careful in the manner in which it takes loans.
Tumekata deni ambayo ingekuweko kwa bilioni karibu 500 tumeondoa, kwa sababu tunataka kuweka taifa letu katika msingi thabiti. Na ndio nataka niwaeleze ya kwamba uchumi wa taifa letu la Kenya tumeidhibiti. We now have a firm foundation for the economy of our country. Na niwahakikishie ya kwamba we are going to be prudent. We are going to be careful in the management of our resources and in making sure that even as we borrow carefully.
Ruto further said that paying the alleged punitive taxes was the only way for Kenya to be independent and economically stabilized.
Kwani mnafikiri mzee Mwai Kibaki alisema kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea kwa sababu ajui? Si alikuwa anajua? He was the foremost economist, so he knew what he was doing. Na ndio sababu hiyo tunasema we must stabilize our economy and we must look for ways of making sure that tunapanga ushuru wa taifa letu, tunapanga kodi ya taifa, so that we can be tujitegemee, we are self-sustaining.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga has denied claims by IG Japheth Koome that they hired dead bodies to accuse police officers of excessive forces. Now, Raila said that the police should own to their mistakes instead of looking for someone to throw the blame on.
And it is actually very disappointing to see a statement from Inspector General of Police, Koome, saying that we hired dead bodies to accuse police of brutality. I don't know in which world he lives, because the bodies we've been burying have bullet wounds on them and death certificates confirming the cause of death. One whose neck was chopped off in Sondo, another one was a victim of arrow attack. So these are real deaths of human beings killed by Mr. Koome's goons, masquerading as police officers.
Inspector General Koome had claimed that politicians hired bodies from the mortuary and claimed there were people killed during the protest by police officers.
We have seen in the recent past, and very unfortunate, senior members of the society going to mortuaries, hiring dead bodies, calling media, telling media that these people are killed by police officers. How low can some of our leaders sink? Anyway, I wish to take this opportunity to tell fellow Kenyans that as the National Police Service, we have a role to protect life and property. We have a responsibility to ensure this country is secure and safe. And that is a mandate we are going to discharge without fear or favor.
And High Court Judge Njoki Ndungu has referred the Finance Act 2023 appeal filed by Busia Senator Okoh Omtata to Chief Justice Martha Koome. Omtata and 3 others had filed an application for appeal against the lifting of the suspension on the implementation of the Finance Act 2023. In orders issued, Ndungu certified the matter as urgent, further directing Mtata and other applicants to serve the notice together with the submissions to the respondents by today at 5 p.m. Now, 74-year-old German national has been jailed for 81 years after being found guilty of child pornography and child trafficking. Thomas Scheller was convicted of 7 offences after the court found him guilty. Milibani Principal Magistrate Caroline Njagi sentenced Scheller to 30 years in jail in count 1 for defilement, counts 2 and 3 to 15 years in prison each, and counts 4, 5, 6 to 7 years in jail. The court further directed that the convict be entered into the convicted sexual offenders register. This is News. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, starting to pile up on Uhuru Highway, getting into the city this morning. Jogo Road started off busy even at 6 o'clock, and we're looking at that go towards Landis. It's not too bad coming off of Kamkunji, not for today. And Gongro is also starting to build up, but again, this is manageable through and through. As coming off Magadi Road, touching on Langata Road, that's going to pile up. We're going to see some movement on Langata Road this morning, but it's all a look and see for now. Getting past Uhuru Gardens, it's going to slow you down just a tad as you then get out towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabouts. We're looking at traffic also then starting to get heavy on the Thika Superhighway, and also coming off of Kiambu roads, it's starting to happen. The one with the most contention is the Thika Superhighway this morning, with a lot of traffic. Out west, the temperatures are quite cool, and so the fog is also quite low. Something to watch out for this morning. Let's see how Wednesday morning pans out to be. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on Twitter as we attempt to keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only...
And welcome to the second hour of The Situation Room. Thank you for tuning in on Spice FM, on YouTube and Facebook, and now also live on KTN Home. Happy Wednesday. It's the 9th day of August 2023. On this day, a year ago, we were waking up to go and participate in the election. Yeah. And so today we have a guest host who is sitting where C.T. Muga normally sits. C.T. is away, enjoying himself, getting new batteries, tired of recharging the same battery. So he just said, let me go and buy fresh batteries. He's having a conversation with Elon Musk on some new age batteries. Mm-hmm. We have a guest host who's taken up his place. Arnold Maliba is a public policy analyst. He will be here with us throughout the show today. And let me remind you about the 29th of October. What happens on that day? This is the day when?
Standard Chartered Marathon.
Why are you whispering?
Okay. The Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon takes place on the 29th of October.
The race will be flagged off at Uhuru Gardens in Nairobi. People will be running along the southern bypass. The full marathon, 42 kilometers, 21 kilometer half marathon. There is a 10 kilometer, the 5 kilometer fun race. If you want to participate in this, start preparing yourself now. Just go to nairobimarathon.com and register with 2,000 shillings. You can also participate in the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, not only in Nairobi, but in other parts of the country. You go to nairobimarathon.com and you'll see what other areas this race will take place. and also anywhere in the world. Remember now there's a virtual run. So the virtual run happens a week before this particular run on the 29th of October. NairobiMarathon.com. That is where you register. 2,000 shillings only. That's the amount that you need to register with. So, just the other day, the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms presented its report to the President, and the President said, implement it forthwith. We've had a conversation about this with the President's education advisor, and one of the major things that has been proposed here is reforming the funding in our universities and tertiary institutions, and also how we manage those institutions. Our next guest is the CEO of the Universities Fund, Mr. Geoffrey Munari. Good morning.
Good morning, Latiff.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, the hot seat of the Situation Room again.
Thank you.
Karibu. This one is an interesting conversation that we're going to have. But to welcome you to the conversation, CT, oh no, it's me. I will give you the day's proverb.
Well done.
Today's proverb, Arnold says we should have had a proverb that is actually a Kenyan proverb to commemorate 9th of August 2022. And I've told him next year, 9th of August 2024, he'll come with a Kenyan proverb. Today's proverb is from West Africa, the countries of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. Unlucky or bad things come to one's mother. Lucky or good things will also come to her. Bad things come to one's mother. Good things will also come to her. What's your interpretation of this?
You see, a mother takes all issues. Clearly, mothers are known to absorb a lot of things, whether good or bad, and they'll always remain our mothers. So the proverb illustrates the importance of a mother to everyone, and to just remind us that our mothers will always be there, whether it's good times or bad times. Yes, they will never go away.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's a whole basket of, goodies and baddies. So that's what it is. That you have good times, you have bad times, indeed. And you have to cover it and show face. Whether it's good, whether it's bad.
Whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, it'll come. Hey, and that's another one, hey? That it'll come. The good times will come.
And the bad
just
times.
As assuredly, the bad times will come. But you carry them all.
Cool. Munari, there's a lot that's happened. The report by the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms talks about very many things, particularly in the post-secondary school education. First of all, for people who are new to this country, please introduce them to the Universities Fund, and then we'll talk about what then will happen to the Universities Fund according to these recommendations. What currently is the Universities Fund?
Yes, the Universities Fund was established by the Universities Act 2012. And its mandate is to apportion funds to universities, also ensure that there is a criteria of funding all these universities that we have. It is also expected to create a minimum differentiated unit costs for universities. The other responsibility is to one of the mandates is to develop a minimum differentiated remuneration for academic staff for universities, and lastly to advise the Cabinet Secretary on matters funding of universities in Kenya. Yes,
there have been challenges on funding universities, even with all the recommendations, the work that you've been doing so far, especially when it comes to the differentiated unit costs. The recommendation was that for every particular course in the university, 80% shall be funded by the government and 20% shall come out of pocket or from other sources by the student. But you've not hit 80%.
Yeah, that's true. This situation became worse over the years because the highest government has funded is 66%. That is in the year 2018-19. And as the number of students grew, the amount reduced to last financial year, we were at 48% instead of the 80%. And the students were also expected to fund themselves or through HELB 20%. However, the other challenge there also was that since 1989, the fees that was being charged by universities remained the same. So for 34 years, the universities were using the same amount to provide education in the universities. So those two issues have actually been the biggest challenge. And this year, according to our statistics, we were going to reduce to 34%. So something urgent had to be done. Otherwise, the quality of education in Kenya was going to suffer. And the students themselves would eventually be the ones to suffer, including the universities, because many had already been declared insolvent. We have seen vice chancellors being jailed in this country. Many lecturers don't even have pension as we speak. The universities have accumulated debts upwards 60 billion as at end of last month.
So then, with what we've seen today, Jeffrey, so what is the proposed solution that seems to have everybody in crosshairs at the moment?
Well, there are many solutions. It depends how we are looking at it. If we start from the most current, I know what the talk of town, we have changed the funding formula. And this is to ensure that our universities and the students get quality education. This change of formula was proposed to the Presidential Working Party when it went around the 47 counties so that they could be able to give a solution to the challenges our universities are facing and the quality of education that our students have been having from the universities. So it was proposed that we have 4 new categories of funding. That is, we fund students based on their vulnerable students. They'll be able to go to university and get a 82% scholarship from government, 18% loan from government, and they will not pay any amount of money. The second proposal is to have the extremely needy students get a scholarship of 70% and a loan of 30%. The third category...
And no out of pocket.
They get out of pocket. All these categories get out of pocket. The usual. The first category will get 44,000.
No, they don't pay anything out of
nothing
pocket.
comes out of
Yes,
their
they don't. But however, remember they'll get upkeep also in terms of loans. So they will not pay anything from their pocket. Those two categories. The third category will get a scholarship of 40%. A loan of 40%, scholarship of 53%, and they will pay out of pocket 7%. The last category will pay a scholarship of will get a scholarship of 38% and a loan of 55% and pay 7% out of pocket. So from the 20%, you can see the out of pocket has changed from 20% to 7%. This has ensured that we now start having a new funding model that will be able to support our students. Yes.
But this 7% that you say is out of pocket.
Yes.
It's basically out of pocket is loan plus direct out of pocket, isn't it?
Yes.
Even in the differentiated unit cost, when it's talked about 80-20, that 20% included help.
Yes, it included help.
So, okay.
Yes.
So now out of pocket moves from 20% to, in the highest case, 62%.
Yes.
Okay.
But
and in the lowest case, the most vulnerable person will now pay 18% out of pocket.
Yes.
Okay. Now justify.
And this is, sorry, the pay that you will pay for all of this essentially is after your education comes to an end.
Yes.
Just to be sure of what we're saying here, that your loan that you get, even if you're at this 18% for a loan for the person in the most needed category, that it is when your university education is completed, that is when you begin to pay
to repay the loan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But for the wealthiest, let's call them the wealthiest. What's that category? What's the terminology?
Less needy.
The less needy.
Yes.
The less needy will pay 7% upfront.
Yes.
To get to university.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, there's a question you're going to answer. Sorry.
Yes.
Can I just be sure? This expense, what are we talking about that this 7% will then cover? Because it must be allocated to something. Is it food? Is it tuition? Is it housing? What is it? Or is it random?
No, it is allocated to tuition.
Okay.
They will also get a loan of 24,000, which will be for their upkeep, to use for food and other requirements in the university.
Okay.
Yes. So what we are saying, this new model has actually reversed how previously we were funding, because the most vulnerable then used to get a loan of up to 60,000 from HELB. Now we are giving them 18% of the loan, which is less than they were previously getting. What is the reasoning about this is because we have realized that when somebody is vulnerable, even after you finish your studies, chances are very high that there's a lot of dependency from family and friends in the village. And like somebody who is less needy or probably capable, chances are that their family will be able to take care of. And this group of less needy, most of these are students who you see in our universities who drive to school, students who over the weekend carry their clothes to take home so that they are washed and come back on Monday. These are students who are in high-class schools. So the government is giving them some support and they can be able to pay. What we are bringing in is what we call equity. Previously, we were funding students based on equality, which meant that all of them were being given a grant, whether you like it or not, from the university's fund. And that meant that even if your family household is able to pay, then the grant is uniform depending on the program that you are attending. But what we are saying now is equity. We are funding you based on your level of need.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, actually, this question, you almost went ahead and preempted it. That's what I wanted to ask. Because the devil is normally in details.
Yes.
But now, in defining, how do we come up with the metrics that then define all of those categories? Because I have seen actually a claim going around that we are now discriminating. The new model discriminates against people who didn't go to public schools. I remember a few friends of mine in a group saying that they are going to advise their friends to take back their children to public primary schools. Which, of course, in my argument, and I actually think it makes sense, that we cannot have scholars being philosophers, not because they really love to be philosophers, but because we are paying them badly. And getting a lot of them, sometimes we've looked at scholars, and especially lecturers, looking shabby, looking like CT. Well, he's away, so I can actually say that. The hair, now that CT is away, we can hate on him.
Yes.
Not because it's a style or it's the academic way of looking, but because we pay the staff around there badly, and that the universities have accumulated debt for a very long time. One of those things that your department will really need to do very well is to do proper policy advocacy and policy communication to ensure that the political, for people in the practice of politics, it's easy to twist these things. So they are running around and no one is really seeing the real reason around why this actually is changing. So probably if you were just to take us through how you qualify each and every one of those categories. Of course, that is being paired up with the issue around school selection, especially for high schools, that people from private schools, normally, even if they pass, you've seen that debate for hours. So it's being likened. So probably just to straighten on each of those categories and some of the metrics that will actually inform that.
Yes. Just to highlight, and I think one of being in a private school is one of the parameters, but it is not the eventual parameter, because you can be in a private school but
But you are needy.
You are needy. Somebody would
very
have
many.
somebody would have sponsored you.
Yes.
So we are looking at 4 critical areas. Number one, family economic background. That is the poverty probability index, from where you come from. And we are going all the way to the wards in this country. Probability index, that means that if you come from, let's say, Naivasha, or Kiambu, somewhere like Lari, we want to see from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics how well endowed are people from that area. That is one factor. Number two, there is affirmative action. We are looking at people living with disabilities, orphans and marginalized. Those are some of the things we are looking at. If you went to schools in that area, it could be a public or private school, because we know there are many students in private schools, and these schools are in slums in this country. If you go to Kibera, Mathare, so it doesn't mean that it is a private school that will determine. There is a socio-democratic data, that is family size and marital status in the family. Are you from a divorced family? Are you from a single parent family? Are you from a family that is together? That also is a factor. And lastly is the family income and expenditure. If you are many children in school, then that is also a factor, especially if they're in university. If you have 2-3 children in university, then the income is also divided based on that. We are also looking at to validate this information through various agencies like KRA and HIF, because we are aware to the fact that anything can be put on paper, but validation is what will be key for us. So we are making sure that we validate all
that you
this
get the right data,
yes,
and the right information.
It can never be 100%, but we are saying it can be maybe 98 to 99%.
So your margin of error is 2%.
Yes. Further, we are looking at, were you sponsored? We have gone all the way to Elimu scholarships. We are looking at the students who are given
bursaries by CDF.
CDF is you see, CDF, I don't want to go political, but CDF, what happens is that many people give all the students who apply equal amount of money.
Yes.
And that is the principle of equality where we are coming from. Because if I'm an MP and I get 20 applications and I have set aside 5 million, we shall divide that money equally to everyone. Because you want to satisfy everyone. What we are saying is that equity is what is important. So CDF may not entirely qualify, but what we'll use CDF for is we are going into a situation where we want everyone who is funding a student in the university to declare that to the fund, the 3 agencies that are working on this, so that you are aware that this student has gotten support from CDF, so that we can reduce their burden by reducing the loan, not the scholarship, the loan, so that in future they don't pay so much money.
Okay, so 2 questions here, Jeffrey.
Yes.
First one being, is this then, what we are looking at, this new funding model, a guarantee for every student who will apply to and be accepted to and attend a public university in Kenya, that this funding model will then apply depending on the category that you fall into?
Yes, we do guarantee, because already the budget has allocated funds. There was an increment of 20 billion to Higher Education Loans Board.
Yes.
The university's fund has been allocated 15.9 billion for this model, and this has already gone through the finance bill for this year.
Okay.
So this is money we can be able to guarantee. Further, those are the ones in public universities.
Yes.
Students who have chosen to go to private universities will get a loan so that they can support their studies.
No
they will
scholarship.
Not get a scholarship, but they are guaranteed to get a loan.
Okay.
So all these students, we guarantee that they will be able to get this, but based on the categories that they shall force. Yes.
So based on the information that they then provide, and whether this is an application stage or later on, they will then be told of their status, or they automatically fall into, so you'll be aware of what your status is, or do you know what your status is then based on, okay, well, you can then apply for 30% loan and you will immediately know that you fall into the needy category? Or will you then be communicated to and said, look, based on the information that you give us, we've assessed, and this is the category that you are in, and then based on that, we then are able to offer you 82% scholarship and 18% loan. Is that what we are saying? How will they be then aware of where they fall?
We have created a new portal that is www.hef.co.ke, where the application process will begin. Once the students apply, in that portal we have created two separate. There is a student portal and institutional portal. So each institution will be given rights to check their students, so that when the students report, they can be able to know how much they have been awarded in terms of scholarship and loan, and how much they will be able to pay from their out of pocket if they are expected to pay.
Okay.
So what will happen, and again the students will download a letter from the portal which they'll carry with them to the university. The aim of this is two-pronged, so that the institution can confirm validity of that letter. Because we all know this is Kenya. You can carry a letter and then later somebody will ask, will say this is not the exact status. So what the institutions will be doing is to confirm that this is the actual award from the direct access in the institutional portal, and then they will admit the student. If you are not expected to pay anything, then you walk into the institution without paying anything, and then that bill will come to us to offset,
to pay
directly to the institution. I want us to take a break, and then you'll come with a question. And you'll also come with your questions. And you'll answer the questions. It's 7:30. Kenya's biggest conversation is hosting Geoffrey Munari. He is the CEO of the Universities Fund. You'll tell us whether this Universities Fund will remain Universities Fund or whether it will be now called Higher Education Funds. Okay? You'll tell us what happens to your institution going forward. We are talking about funding the universities according to the new model that has been proposed, and the president has said, let's adopt this. This is the proposal by the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms, funding higher education institutions, and how we'll be doing this. Time for that break. It's holiday season.
Yes, it is.
We're watching TV.
It's a public service announcement, rather, calling on all children and all who've closed school for the August holidays. DSTV is calling on you to never stop thinking and imagining. You're cordially invited to our wonder-filled world with the greatest kids content from Africa and across the world. Don't waste your kids' August holiday. Get connected to DSTV today. Expand their horizons with content that will inspire them to be more adventurous and fun. It's all on DSTV. Dial *4323# or download my DSTV app to get a DSTV decoder with 1 month of family for just 2,999 shillings.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The man who looks at a beautiful girl and doesn't talk to her will end up serving lunch at her wedding.
Aye, City, do like that.
My father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man?
Ameua panya.
Small mammal, big mammal.
Mtu atamshinda.
What are they saying? How are we comparison? I mean, you kill a mouse.
What are they saying?
What they're saying is, my father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man? Name, surprise. Someone's name.
The name surprised you?
No, the name is surprise.
No, what am I saying? I'm from Nigeria, man. I met somebody called I Believe. So your name is I Believe? Yes, my name is I Believe. But that's the short form. I said, excuse me? I said, yes, my name is I Believe. So what's the full name? I believe in the goodness of
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
13 in Nairobi, highs of 22. We'll see highs of 25 in a mostly clear Nakuru at 14. In Nyeri, it's cloudy at 13, going to highs of 20, and we'll see highs of 23 in Eldoret, where it's mostly clear at 12. It's cloudy at 23 in Mombasa, highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 28 as well in a cloudy Malindi at 25. It's 19 and clear in Kisumu, highs of 29, and highs of 27 in a partly cloudy Kakamega at 18. It's 18 and partly cloudy in Kampala, highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 30 in a partly cloudy Dar es Salaam at 23. Looking to Johannesburg, it's 6 degrees and clear, highs of 18, and mostly cloudy at 26. In Lagos, highs of 29. Kinshasa's partly cloudy at 23. It'll go to highs of 32.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. And right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
And right on cue, traffic hour has kicked in right at 7:30, and it's busy on Langata Road, coming all the way through to Raila Odinga Way Junction, out towards Uhuru Highway at the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, and there at Aerodrome Road. So that's heavy. Getting into the city, Jogo Road busy as usual. Getting towards Landis, it's heavy. And then look at the Thika Superhighway in all its glory with traffic this morning. Folks are using the service lanes, but you'll get stuck at some point because it's moving along slowly. Heavy traffic, bumper to bumper in some areas, moving in others. So, take it as it comes, but be careful either way. Kiambu Road is also piling up, and now is when we see the northern bypass giving towards Ruaka, and also coming out of Kitisuru past United Nations Avenue, and then everybody bunching up on Limuru Road. Coming out of Westlands, Waiyaki Way is busy, and we're looking at Chiromo also piling up in both directions, as well as traffic starting to build up on James Gishuru. We're in traffic hour, folks. Let's see what it comes out to around about 8. Let's talk in the meantime on Spice FM, KE on Twitter.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
so
Nairobi.
Universities are going to be looking different. Well, how we go into university and how we pay school fees in university is going to be different soon, and these are the 4 categories. So the most vulnerable in the society will get government scholarship of 82%. Then they'll be able to get a university loan of 18%. They will not pay anything out of pocket in terms of fees. The next category is the extremely needy category. They will get government scholarship 70%, get loans that they will repay after university 30%. When they're in university, they will not pay a shilling out of pocket. The next category will pay something out of pocket while they're in university, 7% of their school fees out of pocket. They will get access to 40% of loan, which will they repay after university, and 53% government scholarship. The less needy, that's the 4th category, 38% government scholarship, 55% access to loan, 7% to pay off pocket. Our guest this morning is the man who will be implementing this, the CEO of the Universities Fund, Geoffrey Munari. He's hosted by Eric Latiff, Okoh, and our guest host today, Arnold Maliba, who's here, is a public policy analyst. Arnold, your question.
I have got 2, so I'll start with what Ndu was speaking about. But still talking about when you're trying to administer equity, the challenge has always been that it becomes a little bit, coming up with a tool becomes quite complex. And already that looks too complex when you are breaking down the details. My question is that sometimes fortunes do change. We are human beings. Is that model, have you considered having a window that could actually review the metrics in case fortunes change? Because I've come to university. I had all parents who were working and everything else. I went to private schools. So then do I stop midway? Things change midway. So I really wanted us to actually have that in mind. If just in case the circumstances change, is it dynamic enough, or it's going to be quite rigid? The problem with public sector tools is that they can be very rigid. Sometimes where you are insisting, asking somebody, show me where your grandfather was buried, for IDs, for example. Yes. And that kid has grown up in the city, he cannot tell a difference of trees and whatever. So just if the model is dynamic enough to factor in changes. But this one, the second one is a little bit of this. 60 billion of debt, university debt. It's still bearing down on the universities. I don't know. I know in decision making it could be something that goes up to the cabinet. But knowing that Kenya produces a little bit of the region's best human resource, in the region the best resource that we have is actually human beings. Probably one of these fine days when you get the year of the PS or the CS, might you consider actually just floating that to bail out these universities if we do not have money with us? I know 60 billion shillings on the budget is quite a difficult amount to set aside. Probably float a bond, specifically to take care of that. We will pay. We are good in. We will pay in forms of taxes eventually.
Yes.
Put out that and bail out universities so that then we can actually safeguard the quality of education. Otherwise, 60 billion shillings on the universities. Those budgets are not normally so big, but universities are HR intensive. They've got so many people. So I still feel that even if we go this funding model on the student side works well, but then at the institutional level, we still need to think about to come up with innovative and creative ways. And I was just thinking about floating a bond. So we can actually do a university's bond. Yeah. We will pay in future. We are a nation that works. Sisi ni watu wa kazi.
We keep kicking the ball, the can down the road. Yeah. But very good suggestions on the issue of when circumstances change. We actually have an appeal mechanism to review any loan and scholarship award that is given based on change of circumstances. We believe that circumstances do change for the better or worse, but most of the time the worse is what is reported. So we will be able to ensure that, especially when that happens, students do not drop out. We will make it as simple as possible. And we appreciate that fact that circumstances do change. When we go to the debt, and this is a very serious matter because, as I said, 60 billion is a lot of money. The challenge has been, do you bail universities out with 60 billion with a bond? It's a good proposal, but you must first of all plug in the holes. Because if you bail out university 60 billion today, 5 years later
there'll be a wash with cash for 2 years.
Yes, and then maybe you'll ask another bailout. So part of the reforms that we are looking at is we are asking universities to come up with income generating agencies, and that is part of the reforms, and it is going to ensure that they are more sustainable. Secondly, we are looking at them looking at sustainable energy. One of the biggest debts that they have, in fact, if you go to some of the universities, they are provided for students to cook using the coils. You find universities with huge electricity bills. So sustainable energy, and there are people who are willing to support these universities, is very key. And that sustainable energy may even support them by universities selling it out to the community around them. So those are some of the reforms that we are looking at to change, so that even if we are to go for the bond, what we are looking at is sustainability after we float a bond to clear this debt. But if you look at this model, it brings in an extra 20 billion direct to the universities. So the challenge is to the various universities, how do you manage these funds? The CS and the president are very clear that moving forward, the universities have to be more accountable, so that unlike when there was Model 2, so that these funds are used to start clearing some of these debts, and ensure that reforms are put in place, so that in future we do not go back to where we are. It will create autonomy for the universities, so that universities become more dependable on themselves.
I mean, that was a question. I mean, I have bucket loads of issues in terms of own source funding for universities, regardless of whether they are public institutions or not. And the question was that, was there an understanding somewhere that because there was government support, that these public universities are not allowed to think about ways in which they can bring in their own funding? Is there an unspoken rule somewhere that says because the backbone of support is from government that you cannot think about ways in which to bring in more funding for yourselves? Is there something like that?
No. There are various ways in which they are being pushed by government to bring in funding, because we are requesting them to commercialize their research. What is actually happening is that our universities for long have been doing a lot of research, but moving them to commercialization because of sometimes bureaucracies it becomes a problem. So those are some of the areas. Innovation hubs, working with industry,
absolutely,
so that they can be able to be more self-sustaining. If you go to Germany, for example, the Volkswagen that we see on the roads here, there are universities that are linked. There's a specific university that is linked, and it's the one that does research, and then they produce the car, they improve the car every year. The returns that the company gets goes direct to the university. That university is a government university, but doesn't need any money from the German government. So for us, there are many, being an agricultural country, and the way we churn out a lot of raw materials, how can we be able to add value to these raw materials? And it's not that we don't have the brains are there. What is lacking is that industry linkage, so that it can be moved towards manufacturing.
Could it be something deliberate? And I mean, these are suggestions, even as we have these conversations. Could it not be something deliberate? Even if it's to say that, look, we know that government is trying to do many things. We've talked about Ajira. Majority of the people today who are doing this online work fall in this category of university students, for example. It could be used as a model. Joro Campus was agricultural rock star for the longest time until things began to fizzle out. And here we are talking about a government who is, harping on agriculture today. I think there are very many linkages that can be made, but perhaps, again, it's that devil of implementation that sits on the shoulder oftentimes and says, well, can we just not do this thing? So I guess there are many suggestions, and one would hope that even as you're having these conversations, that it becomes an implementation as opposed to a floating of ideas. Before this new funding model, which if I look at one of the proposals, was the amalgamation of the Tertiary Education Placement and Funding Bill to put together HELB, UFB, and the TVET Fund, right?
Yes.
All as one. What happens to folks who... And HELB is a yearly application, You apply and then you move forward. It didn't give you your full 4 years or full 5 years at once if you applied. So with this new funding model, what happens to people who had taken a HELB loan before and finished that year and are now getting into this new category? Do you forgive their loan? And then we move forward.
Clean slate.
Yeah, start again.
No, there is no forgiveness for now. What is happening? This new funding model only applies to the KCSE class of 2022.
It's important to note.
It's important to note that the rest will continue with the DUC, which we had, because we realized that if you try and mix this, first of all, the amount that will be required will be too high. The government may not be able to support this effectively. So you start with a clean slate. What we have also done is to ensure that universities do not increase any fees. There was a cap that has been put to ensure that
one of 1989 stays.
No, the current one, which they quoted, and when the students were applying for placement through COOPS, you could see the costs of the program there. The 1989 was not the actual cost of the program. It was cost sharing then. The model then moved from fully government sponsorship to cost sharing. And that is how 1989 changed, because before 1989 the government used to take care of all costs. But as the numbers grew, it became a challenge, and that is where we have reached today. If you look at the numbers for this financial year, 2022 KCSE class that got C plus and above were 173,127. That is a huge number to fully sponsor them, and hence the request and proposal for them to apply for loans so that they can support the system, and we create a revolving fund for future generations to use.
Jeffrey, there's also a huge number, in the hundreds of thousands, of KCSE graduates, let me call them KCSE graduates, from 2022 who for one reason or another are not in this 173,000 that you speak of.
Yes.
For they did not know how to fill the CUSP's placement, they could not afford the 1,500 shillings registration, so they're not in this pool. Maybe in the future they get into the pool, and the budget is already set for this 173,000, and they may be in need. What happens to them?
Future means if it is after this financial year, then they'll be considered in the next financing cycle. That is what will happen. So because for this financial year, we have, as you rightly say, there are some who did not apply, but that number had already been factored in.
Okay.
So unless they don't apply, and you cannot keep money as per the government budgeting cycle, you cannot keep that same money for the next financial year. So we'll have to consider them in the next financing cycle. And we know that not all students who get C+ and above, remember there are many students, as we were waiting, who went out of the country because they can afford it. There are many students who went to private universities. There are many students who went to public universities but private courses because they wanted a certain course. They did not want to wait for placement. So that gap always allows us to bring in students who can be supported. Yes.
Still coming back to universities funding themselves and what you said, sustainability in own source revenue and managing their finances. Is there going to be a restriction on what universities can or cannot do to raise their own money? We saw what happened to the universities. They went on a land buying and building buying spree, right? And then they ended up with all these assets that are just not making any commercial sense. The examples that you've given, if it is programs that are academia related, then it would make sense. But if you open it up, Kenyan universities are now going to start becoming land buying companies and doing everything else that's being done just so that they can, and their justification is Monari told us to find our own money. Raise our own money.
Yes.
Private universities in this country are not doing that. We don't see them buying buildings left, right and center. Look at them, Daystar, USIU, Baraton, Maxwell. How are they raising their money? How are they able to sustain themselves over all these years? And what can we do to make sure that our public universities are also not running amok buying hotels in the middle of town?
I think we have learnt the hard way.
Have we?
Yes.
Okay.
My engagements with the vice chancellors, that was a period when, as you rightly say, the planning and all the issues that went into it was not carefully thought about. So universities are now carefully ensuring. Remember, the ministry closed many campuses that were there to curb some of this wastage. The ministry also went further to ensure that these universities have to get approvals for any purchases going forward. So those guidelines are being implemented. Why we are encouraging for them to go for the IGAs is to become more autonomous and provide quality education in the universities. Because when you have got idle assets and you're not sweating that asset, it's also a loss to the university and the country. What that will mean is that as we move forward, we will also ask the universities, as we look at the balance sheets, can they support these students instead of all this money coming from the exchequer? And that is the model we are looking at, and that is a model that is out there, because you find a certain percentage of the support of these scholarships. You're all aware there are universities out there that you find 30% of their students are on scholarship. And if we can reach a situation where instead of investing in buildings, we invest back in the quality of education, that is the model we are looking at. Because we believe that most of these universities, especially the older ones, have got enough facilities. The challenge will be with the younger universities that still require support in terms of infrastructure, hostels, and all these things. In terms of hostels, we are also encouraging universities to go for PPPs and out of the PPPs, mainly go for buy, operate, and transfer later, so that the universities do not use their infrastructure funds for those hostels, because there are private investors out here who can be able to support these universities. For private universities, I think, and that's what the public ones are suffering from. Many of the public universities that were promoted to become universities inherited staff where they previously, how they were previously. For example, if you are a technical or a polytechnic, you had staff who were there, and you inherited staff who you have got now, and the wage bill is so high, you cannot get rid of them unless you get some support from the government. So you maintain staff who you don't actually require. That is not the case with private universities. They come in very lean, and they ensure that their expenditures are controlled. So as a sector, we are moving to ensure that those reforms are implemented, so that in future it will not be easy, but in future we can have universities that have got staff that are required and are well paid. The point my brother brought out, where you find a lecturer is not able to take care of their basic
own beard.
needs. Yes. And many other basic amenities. And the most painful is even when a lecturer retires and there is no pension. You can imagine, if you retire, there is no pension, you have worked up to 70 years, because that's when they retire, then it becomes a problem. As a country, we should be very worried about the situation we are in. Yes.
I think, Eric, also, to just build on that and then ask a question, is that when you talk about private universities, they actually charge courses at market rate. That in and of itself ensures that they remain afloat for quite a while. Secondly, he spoke about them being lean and effective. You know, anything public somehow is huge and slow, in that it takes a lot of time to reduce or rather take decisions and work around that. When he spoke about universities having their own, and he gave the example of power, I think you had in mind Strathmore University, which is one of the leading green energy providers. And if you look at Kenya Power's list of suppliers in the grid, Strathmore University is there. But you see, the challenge here, even as he mentioned that we are an agricultural country, we really are not an agricultural country. It's true that 33% of our GDP is contributed by agriculture, but largely that is subsistence farming. When I was in school, 16% of our land was arable. Today, the people at the Ministry of Agriculture are saying that we only have got 8% because we've used those funny fertilizers, and the soil is so acidic that it now needs billions of shillings to actually do liming if we really need to go back there. So as a country, we are a mixture, we are a mishmash. So just out of curiosity, I'm thinking, what would be the general policy guidelines that would help universities also speak to where we are going? Because a lot of times the academia is doing catch up to the economy. Even as the society moves, and at least in this country, we are doing catch up. So we have got a research fund. We even have got laws in this country. If you're looking at the strategy paper on employment creation, we even proposed that counties will put 3% of their monies to research at county level. For as much as I've worked even in counties today, I've never seen a county that has set aside.
So the question is on the policy direction.
So the policy direction, so that then we move with the academia. It's okay, you know, the place of the university is supposed to be a nursery of reason, so that then it democratizes your options as you go to the marketplace. But you see, we've now just turned it into a nursery of isms, where we just come in. So literally, so out of thought leadership, exactly. How do we try to ensure that the academia moves with where we are going? Looking at where we are going as a country, We are not bringing in guys here.
Let him answer before he forgets.
Well, I want to anchor the point. I want to anchor the point because Eric here, the guys that Standard here, will bring in a journalist
before he forgets the point. Arnold, okay.
No, I think that is very important point that you brought. How do we ensure? And that's why I talked about. There's a lot of research that is happening. If you look at how our universities are set up currently with the debt load that vice chancellors are having, they cannot be able to motivate and even concentrate on their core mandate, which is teaching, research, and that is where the problem is. We have to lessen these burdens the burden that they are having currently by ensuring that the universities are running well. Then you can now challenge them to be able to give us the support that we require. Because the biggest challenge is that you will not expect a lecturer to give you what you are requesting, and yet their salary is being paid at 60%, because there are universities that are paying at 60%. So what we need to do is to ensure that that is done. Secondly, the National Research Council is being formed under the Presidential Working Party reforms. So that will be key for us in the future as a country to ensure that the research that we are developing is also commercialized and is implemented. Just to follow through. These are discussions we can have another day. And you can see there are many issues that are coming up in the education
Quite
sector.
a number.
Yes.
But Jeffrey, we thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
And we'll
Latiff,
Ndu, and Arnold.
But Arnold is my second name. My first name is Maliba. I don't know why you always forget that.
I like referring to you for second name basis. Jeffrey Munari is the CEO of the Universities Fund. He's been our guest this morning talking about the new universities funding model. Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. It's 8 a.m. Time for the news.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. Members of the Dialogue Committee from the opposition and the government are today expected to meet for the first time since their formation. In the meeting that coincides with the one-year anniversary since the 2022 election, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka and the majority leader in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, will lead their teams in ironing out the issues on the table. Apart from Kalonzo, Azimio is represented by DAP-K leader Eugene Wamalwa, Malindi Member of Parliament Amina Mnyanzi, Nyamira Senator Okoh Omogeni, and Minority Leader Opiyo Ndai. Likewise, yesterday, Azimio Party appointed Jeremiah Kioni to lead the legal committee in the negotiations. In a statement, Azimio leader Raila Odinga said Kioni's role will be to help the chairperson of the Azimio side in the negotiations.
We picked the team with a full understanding that the country is on a wrong trajectory. Anyone who thinks otherwise is being delusional. With this reality in mind, we have put in place a technical and legal team to support our delegation to the dialogue. Consequently, we have settled on Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, the Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, to head the legal and technical team to the talks.
On the Kenya Kwanza side, apart from Kimani Ichung'wah, there are Senate Majority Leader Arun Cheruiyot, Bungoma Woman Representative Catherine Mblianga, UDA Chairperson and Embu Governor Cecily Mbarire, and Yala Member of Parliament Hassan Omar. Ichung'wah has continued to emphasize his boss's position that the issues that will be discussed are those that concern Kenyans.
Nimewaeleza ya kwamba kama mnataka tuongee, tuko na shida ya 2/3 gender rule. Kina mama wamekuwa wakilalamika, na ni kweli kwamba wanafungiwa nje. Twende to sort out. Tumekuwa na matatizo na CDF. CDF imechangia mali kubwa sana katika maendeleo ya Kenya, hasa kwa mambo ya masomo, mambo ya basari, mambo ya mashule yetu. Kasema tunaweza kujadiliana mambo ya CDF. Tunaweza kujadiliana maneno ya NGAF, tunaweza kujadiliana maneno ya oversight fund ya Senate, tunaweza kuongea hiyo. Hiyo ni mambo ambayo inahusu wa Kenya na maendeleo yao. Hiyo tunaweza kuongea.
Odinga, however, insists that The Azimio is ready for negotiations to focus on the high cost of living, changes to the Electoral Commission IEBC, review of the results of the last year's elections, freedom of political parties and various issues related to the constitution, dismissing the claims of Kenya Kwanza that they want to have a handshake with the government.
I want to reiterate once again here, Azimio is not interested in handshake. We don't want to shake anybody's hands, particularly those people whose hands are tainted with blood of innocent Kenyans. But we have agreed to negotiate in good faith, as we have mentioned, so that we can be able to move our country from where it is today to a peace, so that justice can finally be our shield and defender.
13 judges have been redeployed in transfers announced in a notice issued by the judiciary. Among the judges transferred is Justice Muga, who issued orders stopping the implementation of the Finance Act 2023. Justice Tande, who was heading the Constitutional Division at Milimani Law Court, has been transferred to the Malindi Law Court and will be replaced by Justice Chacha Mwita. Also redeployed to the Civil Division is Justice David Majanja, who is currently presiding over the finance bill case. Another notable transfer is that of Justice Diana Kavedza from heading the Kahawa Court. Kavedza handled the murder case on the Eastleigh-based officer Ahmed Rashid, who was charged with murder. Now, the National Council of Churches has appealed to the task force probing operations of religious organizations in the country to make recommendations that do not infringe on freedom of worship. In a memorandum to the task force, they said the deaths at Shakahola were a crime that resulted from the failure of security agencies to act on reports that were made to them. As such, they asked the probe team to propose legal amendments to enable law enforcement agencies to more effectively tackle crimes arising from religious extremism. This is News. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, a few minutes after 8 o'clock. Traffic is still heavy on the Thika Superhighway. Coming down past Outer Ring Junction, you'll see a lot of it get towards Survey and then out towards the Pangani Underpass. It's pretty busy coming off of Kiambu Road as well. And probably now is when we'll see it heavier than usual getting into the city. We're also seeing traffic on Limuru Road. It's coming in from the Northern Bypass. Kitisuru is also doing the thing this morning. Coming out of Westlands, busy as well. Watch out for that fog and mist that's heavy as you're going out west. Let's keep an eye on things and see what happens later. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It is
the only way to start your day.
Welcome to the third hour of The Situation Room. We are still live on KTN Home, on Spice FM, on YouTube and Facebook, as we always are every weekday morning at this time. Today is the 9th day of August 2023. On this day, a year ago, we went to the ballot to elect new leaders. 1,882 new leaders, all the way from the member of the county assembly or the ward representative, as they are known in the constitution, to the president of the Republic of Kenya. All of them are in office, and we can see
we have got a few vacancies.
Yes,
for
of
those
course,
who've departed.
occasioned by some of the circumstances. Yes, we'll continue. Arnold Maliba is our guest host today. Arnold is very many things, including what?
I am just a public policy analyst.
Yeah, including that.
That's the including you were looking for.
Properly, I'm just a government technician. That's what a public policy should be.
A government technician?
Yeah. Sisi ni watu wa mkono to fix government.
Okay.
Yeah.
Arnold is a government technician. Okay. And he's our guest host today. CT is away until next week when he'll be back. We hope that he's enjoying himself and enjoying some holiday because he's watching TV.
Yeah.
What is he watching? He's watching some DSTV and Go TV. And Ndu is telling us what he's watching because he's actually asking, so what are you watching this morning? City is also working and preparing for the 29th of October, which is the day that he will be participating in the 20th edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. You should join CT. Not like doing the 10-kilometer run that he'll be doing. You can do the 21 kilometers or the 42-kilometer run. And how do you prepare for this? By, first of all, registering on nairobimarathon.com, pay 2,000 shillings, get ready for that. It takes place on the 20th of October. No, the 29th of October, the 20th edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. Remember, the proceeds go towards the Future Makers program, which helps young people, especially girls, and people living with disability to learn, to earn, and to grow. The Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon coming up. Guess what? Celebrating 20 years.
Indeed.
What is he watching?
I'll tell you what he's watching. He's watching Alvin and the Chipmunks. You want to believe that CT doesn't watch cartoons? He does. And Alvin, Simone, and Theodore are the chipmunks with a fantastic season of the classic animated series Alvin and the Chipmunks. These chipmunk brothers are famous rock stars who tour around the world with their best friends, the Chipettes. It's a new season that started, and it's every day at 4 p.m. on Nickelodeon, DSTV channel 305. Open your kids to this wonderful film world on DSTV to get this and more world-class kids content from over 15 dedicated channels. What do you need to do to feel the adventure and fun exclusively with DSTV? Dial *423# or download my DSTV app to get a DSTV decoder with 1 month of family for 2,999 shillings.
On this day last year, we went to the ballot to elect a new crop of leaders. The president, we were very sure that we were going to get a new president because the one who was in office was leaving. And why was he leaving? Because the constitution said that he had to leave after serving 2 terms in office. And now we knew the new leader will only have a maximum of 2 terms in office. We want to talk about those constitutional term limits and why they're there in the constitution. We are joined by 2 guests from the Katiba Institute. One of them is Patricia Joseph. She's a program manager at Katiba Institute, and Kevin Mabonga is the head of communications. Good morning, Patricia. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning.
Good morning. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. That's the hot seat of the Situation Room. Don't worry. Feel relaxed, okay?
We don't bite on Wednesday.
Relax this way. I'll tell you the day's proverb. Today's proverb is from West Africa, from any of the countries, Niger, Mali, or Burkina Faso. What's standing out about those 3 countries? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the proverb. The proverb is, bad things come to one's mother. Good things will also come to her. Bad things come to one's mother. Good things will also come to her. Kevin, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
Well, my interpretation is that there are always 2 sides of every situation. Mm-hmm. There's always the good side of the situation, and there's always the bad side of the situation. And maybe later on I'll relate to our discussions today. Yeah.
Okay. Patricia, what's yours?
I see it as a reality of life that my mother could be my country, who I love very much, will good things will happen to her, and bad things will also happen to her. And I think as we discuss later on, we will see that we may have protections of term limits, but it doesn't mean that it will not. It may have a good intention, but it doesn't mean it will not be challenged or people will abuse what it seeks to do.
Good one. So let's get straight into it in terms of term limits. So our constitution places some term limits not only on the position of president, but also in other constitutional institutions. Why are term limits important, Patricia?
I could start by saying, one, it's a rule of law question. Governance is, we are governed by a system of democracy where we go through elections and elect different people. So in that sense, then term limits become an important element of the rule of law because it's also an opportunity to ensure there's a peaceful transition of power. It also, and through that way, it also ensures that we develop a system of stability, which is also important for the development of a country. And then if you relate it to our situation in Kenya, we have a society made of many different diverse groups. And in that case, even when we talk about regional representation, different political parties, different ethnic groups and all that, then term limits, it becomes an important element of ensuring that that is actually realized as our constitution envisages, where we don't have one person representing a group that then holds power indefinitely. Yeah.
So let's look at those offices that have term limits. President, deputy president, term limit. Governor, deputy governor, term limit, right? Chief Justice has a limit of how long they can serve, right? The limit to their tenure. And there are several other institutions. The controller of budgets, the auditor general, the director of public prosecutions, and others. You're saying that this is so that there is some semblance of order, but what's wrong with having somebody serve as Chief Justice? I mean, why the number of years that have been set? For example, for a Chief Justice to serve, why those years? Why not +2? Why not -2? How long should a Chief Justice serve? 7 years? Or if they attain the age, right? Why not 10 years? Why not 15? Why not 5, like a president?
Okay, I'll respond to that. That's a good question. And when we discuss about the idea of term limits, it's basically about control of. It's one of the items that attempts to control power. And maybe later on, I'll give an example of a president in one of the East African countries. So when he took power, said that the problem with leaders is that they tend to want to stay in power for so long. More than 35 years later, he's still a president. But then the concept is to try and control power, and there has been so many research. People have done research about the concept of power, and they agree that when someone stays in office for too long, then there are chances that there will be increased levels of corruption. Afrobarometer researchers indicate that there are chances that human rights violations will increase. There are chances that that person might not take advice or might forget, if it's an elected position, the people that elected them. And that's why it's important that when we place limits on elected leaders and even the offices that you've mentioned, like the key offices, so as to ensure that someone does not become indispensable, to ensure that there is some form of control of power that someone enjoys. Yeah.
I just want to, I like us to little bit twist it and bring it home. I know Eric was talking about, brought in the issues of the CG, the Chief Justice and the others, but I looked at the report and it's focusing on the elective seats. So hearing you and hearing her, I think you say that term limits, specifically the function is to minimize corruption and abuse of power, open government to new people and new ideas, because unfortunately sometimes just because you stay longer, experience does not mean that you will actually have new ideas. And then of course to infuse innovation, creativity in solving national issues, and of course to reinvigorate democracy. That for me, I look at term limits specifically as a function that targets the executive. largely across the world. Why I'm actually talking about bringing it home is that we have sneaked a little bit of executive functions to the legislature. And I'm talking about CDF because there is a direct correlation between the high number of re-election of members of parliament this time round. This is the first time we've retained so much of a number. The attrition level is normally about 67% with CDF. So I have always challenged people that you can actually do a technical paper between the death of the legislature as we know it, or the death of parliament as we know it in Kenya, and CDF. So, and in our case, of course, like everybody else, there is no term limits to being a member of parliament. But apparently now with CDF, you can actually be a member of parliament for life. So initially, of course, term limits were targeting the executive, and now we are sneaking in a little bit of those functions to the legislature. And you can actually see that even the president is talking about anchoring CDF in the law. How do we go forward about, how do we think about that? Because somehow these things keep on evolving.
Well, okay, let me first of all comment on the background you've raised, and in relation to term limits. When we say it's an issue of control of power, there's also that aspect of checking of power, and one way of limiting government is to have that system of separation of power, because it foresees that if we have a president, then we have a legislature that checks on the exercise of executive powers. But then we have this situation in Kenya where the president, and I think we come from a history of an imperial president, which is still a factor in Africa, where the imperial presidency, despite our new constitution of 2010, is still a factor that we keep seeing emerging. This is because, one, there's expectation on paper that Parliament will do its functions as expected, that it will actually do the big function that we don't see of oversight, although for checking the executive. Then we don't see that happening in practice as we would want, because with our system, you'd expect that some of the issues that have been going on in Parliament would not happen. Secondly, again, issue of controlling that power and limiting government. We see, as you say, the encroachment of executive functions in Parliament. You see that issue of even the president going beyond his executive authority. But then also when you look behind what is behind that, we have this issue of political parties that are really the ruling party dominance. So you have a coalition, for instance, a coalition of parties in Kenya that form the dominance in Parliament. Then it translates to how power is also checked in Parliament. And you see that lower level of check of power does not happen. Then, of course, it brings us to the issue of our elections. Then do we say that people need to have limitations on how many times a person can vie? That's a question. We don't have that system right now. Maybe depending on how the lessons we see going forward, we will see. Is it something people should explore? Maybe, as you say, in-depth analysis needs to be done to see if we are checking the powers of the executive of the end of the governor, which are really executive functions. How about the elected officials? It's mainly, of course, comes from the fact that there's that aspect of the universal suffrage, but then also the president is also elected. So I can't say there's a clear answer as to why maybe that happens, but it's a lesson that has to be learned. If we are not be able to, if we have a system of checks of balances and it's not working, what happens? Will it change if we keep changing members of parliament every 10 years? I don't know. Yeah.
If we look at Kenya, I mean, where we are today, we have seen one presidency in Kenya whereby, the terms were multiple terms, in succession. Yeah. Thereafter, we have not seen that there has been exceeding of terms until most recently, when we even saw that 2 terms were served and then, president exited and brought in a new administration. Now, as we're having this conversation, is there chatter, as it were, or are there indicators that would point to the possibility that someone might want to extend a term and go as far as to change what the Constitution envisages, and not just envisages, but actually goes ahead and prescribes. Do we see any of that happening, or are we just saying it is necessary to caution to make sure that the desire for excesses does not take root and then lead to something that might see a changing of the Constitution? What are we saying here?
So we don't foresee a situation whereby historically we haven't seen a situation in Kenya where a president has tried or attempted to extend their terms. Mm-hmm. We've had a few conversations here and there. I think last year an MP mentioned about the issue of removal of term limits, but it was dismissed immediately. Mm-hmm. But then this conversation is necessary in Kenya or in other African countries that have consistently followed the term limits, because it's a conversation. If it's lost somewhere else, it can just start. Then it just requires a very short process. Then you would see term limits removed. So it's important for citizens to know that we have this law, we have a provision of term limits, and there must be a reason why this provision was put in the Constitution. Mm. And of course, we educate people that provision is a good one. Mm-hmm. I've gone to a few counties and interacted with people, discussed about the issue of term limits. There are two sides of it. Some people say democracy is about the will of people. Mm-hmm. Why are you telling us that term limits then matter? I went to some two contrasting counties. One, County A, where the governor, according to the people, performed so well. So these people are accusing us and telling us, why are you promoting this issue of term limits when if there were no term limits, our governor would have easily been elected for the third term. Mm-hmm. But again, County B is where they are just praying that the term ends so that the governor goes away because of what they think the governor didn't perform well. Mm. So in general, I would say the conversation must continue because of the benefits of term limits. And as a country, maybe we'll discuss this later, the context we are facing currently looks like we are backsliding in terms of democracy and other aspects. We've had coups, instability in countries, and when you do research, countries that have consistently maintained the term limit provision of the law, they are a bit stable in terms of transition. And of course, Kenya can be that good example, and Tanzania.
You see, for Tanzania, we have seen that smooth transition. Julius Kambarage Nyerere says, Nimengatuka. And then now we've seen leaders who come, there's an election, in fact, they even call it Mwongo. This is this person's reign, they leave, somebody else is coming in, right? Okay. As we were heading towards the 2022 general election, a conversation had already started a couple of years earlier on. We have a young president, people. Come on, guys. I mean, we elected a young president. Where do you expect this president to go? And the BBI conversation, there are those who saw the BBI as another avenue of playing the game. Yeah, we shall have the constitutional letter of term limit being observed, but the spirit may not be. And I want to argue that it already has obvious and direct risks. You said term limit is introduced so that we can check and control power. Okay? We have introduced term limits for the position of governor. We have governors who have finished their terms as governors who are now sitting in the Senate as senators. And like Maliba said, there's no term limit for election as a senator. You can sit there for forever. The current Speaker of the Senate is a governor who finished a constitutional term limit of 2 terms as governor. Is now a Speaker of the Senate. This man is an advocate of the High Court. There's nothing that bars Amason Kingi from finishing whatever term now as Speaker of the Senate, becoming Director of Public Prosecutions, serving the constitutional limit, becoming Chief Justice, serving constitutional limit, and maybe retiring in office. So term limits are there, yes, but is it about the spirit or the letter, Patricia?
I would say the idea is both the spirit and the letter. But then again, as practice shows, is that of course, people who we say power tends to corrupt, and you see that whenever someone is in office, they would want to continue holding onto that power. And I could say even, and the lessons we can see in how term limits are tankered with even across the region. One of them would be you either abolish them completely, like the recent referendum in the Central African Republic. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you either introduce amendments. For instance, let's say the way you mentioned the BBI, it was quite extensive amendments, or any other amendments in the Constitution you might find. Amendments are introduced. If let's say we had a 5-year term for 2 terms, they may say, okay, let's now do 1 term of 7 years, and then they extend. Then once the amendment comes into place, we say, okay, we are starting on a clean slate. Mm. So if he had served for 10 years, he say, okay, this is a new constitution, so I deserve to vie for a position in this new constitution. So it starts a clean slate. Then again, it defeats the whole idea, the spirit here of the issue of term limits. And then we also have this situation of, and that I still want to come back to what you're saying. We have this situation, for instance, of Uganda, where an amendment will start. Sometimes it may seem very almost innocent. For instance, Uganda started by, first of all, removing the 2 terms. But then again, they had an age limit. So even if he had extended, you'd say, okay, he reaches the age limit, he will retire. Then what did they do the second time? They removed the age limit, then creating a presidency for life. Mm. So you see, the spirit that was intended is defeated by just tampering with the constitution. So for us, then it becomes, once you hear about constitutional amendments proposed and you look at who is bringing these amendments, most of the time you'll see the ruling, the incumbency introducing, or through now a strong parliament that is executive controlled. Then you see those. Then I think our antennae should really be up, because when you see those tampering with the constitution, it may look like we are amending this part and this part, but then again, what will be the overall effect? It may defeat the whole idea of term limits, or it may lead to a consolidation of power, for instance, and this could be a long game. For some, when you have constitutional amendments that require, for instance, a super majority of parliamentarians vote, then you find that maybe 10 years in, you find a consolidation of power starts, what he was referring to earlier. Then you find a parliament that is controlled by an executive. But you may not see the long game. Then maybe eventually the long game is to ensure that by the time I'm coming for a second term with a very strong parliament of my party, then it becomes very easy to pass constitutional amendments. And you see that end game started a long time ago. Mm. And that's why we say, when you look at both the letter and the spirit of the law, we continue looking at the constitution as a whole. We look at when the consolidation of power starts, usually an executive, then we have a legislature that enables that consolidation. Then our prophetic eye should lead us to see what will this mean for us if this consolidation happens, because it will eventually defeat that idea of control of power and democratic elections, independent institutions. Then so that we look at the spirit of the law wholesomely to ensure that the idea of term limits, control of power is not defeated.
Mm. I think Ndu asked a question, and I still feel that we didn't do so much justice. So probably I'll just try to build up on that and see if we could actually ask more questions. She asked if we've seen charter, if there's a feeling. Generally, a lot of times we look at the constitution in this country and we feel like, okay, it says there's a term limit, therefore nothing can happen. But first of all, it's important to actually underscore that we have actually had 3 presidents who have adhered to term limits. Yeah. Because sometimes in 1991, we brought in term limits after the Mlolongo fiasco, I think in 1988 and 89. And President Moi did not retire on his own. No. Even though he declared a lot of times that I said I will step down and I will not run in 202. The truth is that we already had put it in the constitution before the 1992 elections that a president would only run for 2 terms. So Moi did abide by that. Mwai Kibaki did that, and Uhuru Kenyatta almost did that. So when we say that, the Fafi MP, Yakub Salah, in November 2022, started that conversation. Barely, I think, 2-3 months into election, he was talking about the need to remove the term limit. What I think, and his point was that if somebody is doing good work, why then? And that is why it's actually important, I think, for you guys and everybody else who's actually championing this to laud the real function of term limits. Because apparently people think that so long as you're doing good work, then why should you? Why should there be term limits to that? So that particular bit, that if you're doing good work, I think the Constitution of Kenya has taken care of that particular bit, that if you don't do your work, we will check on you. So there is oversight, there's public participation, there's even impeachment. So that's the argument. It's important to actually to get that out. So talking about term limits as they are, not that we've not tried to do. She's actually almost said it, but then stopped. There was BBI, and then there was the BBI in BBI. We almost talked about doing a Kaputin. You know what Putin did with Medved. Then that we come in. Uganda in 2005 came up with a referendum. It started with so many other things, and then the term limits was thrown in. Rwanda has actually done the same. So as we talk about that, it's important to remind people continuously that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance, and that this thing is not so far. The only paradox in this conversation, by the Eric, is that the last, they call it the Niamey Declaration, was in Niger. Unfortunately, in the place where they were talking about term limits and doing the declaration, is where now apparently we might not even have a term.
Let's take a break. 26 minutes to 9, Kenya's biggest conversation. Our guest host today is Maliba Arnold, public policy analyst. He says he's a government technician. And our two guests for this conversation, Patricia Joseph and Kevin Mabonga, they are from the Katiba Institute. We are talking about controlling power, why we must respect institutional term limits. They have a report that they've published, the Katiba Institute, that is looking at this and championing the reason why we must always safeguard this provision in our democracy. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. And hii mambo utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
15 degrees in Nairobi, highs of 22 and lows of 12 today. We'll see lows of 13 in a sunny Nakuru at 18, currently going to highs of 25. It's sunny at 14 in Nyeri and sunny at 15 in Eldoret. Partly sunny at 24 in Mombasa, highs of 29. And we'll see highs of 29 as well in Malindi, where it's currently sunny at 25. It's 20 and sunny in Kisumu, going to highs of 29, and 28 will be the high. In a sunny Kakamega at 20. Kampala is sunny at 21, and Dar es Salaam is sunny at 26. 10 degrees warming up in Johannesburg, highs of 18. And we'll see partly cloudy conditions through Lagos at 25, going to highs of 29, and 32 will be the high in a sunny Kinshasa at 22.
Spice up your life.
All right, still looking at traffic in many parts of the city this morning. Let's look at where it's piled up. Some still on the Thika Super Highway, trying to get through towards the Pangani Underpass. Kiambu Road looking a lot better right about now. And the North Airport Road heading out towards Outer Ring is also starting to clog up right this moment as you get towards the junction. Jogo Road still doing the busy thing, and Gong Road is also busy now, in and outbound traffic to the city and then back in again. Apart from that, we should be all right. We're in traffic hour, coming out of that in about an hour or so. Let's know what's going on where you are. Let's talk on Spice FM, KE on Twitter.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is something that is ingrained in our constitution, and the conversation we're having this morning is championing and why we must respect these institutional term limits. When we talk about term limits, most of the times people think about the presidency. When we talk about power in this country, we still concentrate our minds on the presidency. And Malibu, like you're saying, every time we hear the issue of term limit and maybe changing term limits, we are thinking, the person who's holding the reins of the national executive may be changing the term limit and staying there longer. So, okay. Let's even say that we do not touch that term limit for the president. That a president comes and serves for 5 years, gets re-elected, serves another 5 years, the end. Can never be president again in this republic. But nothing stops that president from being Speaker of the National Assembly for an unlimited period of time. If term limits are introduced so that we can control power, are we looking at only the king, or are we also looking at the kingmakers and the real powers behind the power? Because if somebody is powerful enough, and like you've given the example of Vladimir Putin and Medvedev in Russia, where they just played that whole game, Medvedev becomes president, Putin prime minister, president, Medvedev prime minister, and the game is going on. How about if we just saw a case in this country where somebody has served as president, but then they go into parliament or they are elected by their people and they serve as speaker, and this is the third most powerful seat in the country, or they serve as chief justice until they retire, or this. How do we safeguard against that control of power? Because the ultimate thing that this person is doing is they're wielding power. That's to you, Kevin.
That's a very provoking question, and in our course of implementation of this project on term limits or discussions about term limits, we've encountered that question, and I would say that earlier on you asked about the spirit of the law. The spirit of the constitution, and I would say in this case mostly we would say the spirit, because there are some situations where we've tried, the framers of the constitution, the framers of the law tried as much as possible to safeguard against someone having absolute power, but then as the Russia experience gives us, it shows that leaders can go through certain ways and of course escape that route. But then that's why this discussion is important to citizens. For example, if you have been a governor you've served 2 terms, why should the electorate elect you again to serve in a different position? I think at this level it's not about the law, but probably the citizens or the electorate would play a key role to prevent you from taking another position, because now, as you put it, it will be defeating the real.
It's playing the game.
Yeah, it's playing the game. Basically,
I am no longer governor, but I am senator of the county.
Yeah,
I'm still in the arena.
And I'm still powerful. Actually, I will be sitting here and I'll be determining who becomes governor next, because I know how that position works. I'm a senator. I'm getting elected. I'm popular with the people. I become a kingmaker. So basically, I'll be governor for life. Term limits are just the thing on paper.
And isn't that where the danger lies? Like what Maliba reminded us about with last year, when the information came that somebody was making a suggestion. It's not going to come from the executive, is it?
It's not.
It's going to come from the folks who are playing in the periphery, who also see the benefit of being in the space. Nobody necessarily wants to be. If you're not the lead actor, that's all right, but you're going to hold some position somewhere and you will still be on the stage. Is that not where the danger lies? We will rarely find, except in some, we'll rarely find that for somebody who wants to push to continue to be in that position, it's the folks around them now who start to make the suggestions, who start to float these things, and then it becomes a reality. Take your pick of the people that we've seen. We have a 90-year-old president who is in West Africa today. We have folks who were overthrown by military coups still in West Africa. We have somebody sitting here in East Africa. If you go back, you will find that the suggestions oftentimes came from their advisors, or the suggestion as to, hey man, you're doing such a wonderful job, what's wrong with you continuing? It's not necessarily for their benefit as an individual, but it also represents a benefit to the folks who are around him or her. In most cases him, but okay. Should that not be where then we place the attention?
Okay, I would say the concerns you raise are indeed valid, because and it is true. When if I'm the president and I want to extend my term, I will not, strategy-wise, I will not come and say, okay, I think I've done a good job, elect me for another term. Yes,
except
it's
your
true.
name is Vladimir.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. and for you to be Vladimir, it means there's a lot you're controlling around you, such that your word is the one all and be all. Yeah. I think I would say you're right, because when you look at when the issue of term limits is coming in, if you look even at Uganda, these are the people who control the narrative, and that's why even for us, when those discussions came in, we couldn't just keep quiet about it, because it could be someone is throwing in a word and then you test the waters and see what the people will say. And what if we had said, okay, we have a young president, he's done a good job, and all that. So I would say yes, and for this kind of advocacy and discussion on term limits, then the focus should be multi-sectoral. We are not just having a conversation in public. We also we also and sensitizing the citizen, where we want to get the civic demand is so heightened that we can have a possibility of a pushback against such drawbacks to touch the term limits. Then also, let me also say that the system that we're working with, there's a presumption sometimes that, and I think maybe we did not foresee, where we saw someone finishing a term as a governor and then going on to vie as a senator, and that becomes even quite untidy, because you're from the executive. The executive is supposed to check on the affairs of the parliament and senate in this case is supposed to check on the affairs of the executive, and then you go and become a senator in that house. There are things that will not, there are certain checks we start losing when that happens, because what if that number increases? It becomes quite dangerous. But let me say, the concern that issue of these narratives coming in should worry us, because even for us in Kenya, we can't say, even based on the proverbs of the day, that it can't happen to us. I think it would be, ignorance that thinking it will not happen, it cannot happen to us. It can happen to us. And then if you look at the other countries, when this term limits discussion comes in, there's a lot that has happened behind the scenes. Yeah. A president exercising a lot of power or consolidating it, and then using that political party dominance in, let's say, legislature, and of course controlling a narrative of the public that, I've done a good job in development. Then it becomes, multiple factors come on board, and that's why our response then should be quite also diversified in that extent, because if we say citizens, the development is a factor. Yes, development matters. A good record of a public leader matters. But then let's also say that as citizens, we deserve both. We deserve both a democratic environment and also development, not one or the other, both.
I want to look at Kenya's possible appetite for something like this. And usually when you do something like that, you're going to have to look at Kenya in the context of a Pan-African situation, right? And if you look at the examples that we have seen around the continent, let's just take the continent as for way of example, that Kenya's appetite has not really shown to be something like that. even in the case where we heard the suggestion, it was snuffed out quicker than you can say Bob's your uncle. That conversation died by the third day. It was finished. It was gone. So if we're going to look at Kenya comparatively to African nations, Kenya has not had an appetite for that. Kenya's leaders have not necessarily had an appetite for wanting to extend rule beyond what the rules of the land state. You haven't seen that there has been that kind of thing. People generally, when their term is over, because we're now focusing on the executive, will stand down and they'll move on to the next, right? Whether there's contention about who did or who didn't do what. Generally, people will leave. Is there danger? And that, from what we see, is there danger? Because usually, look, I'm telling you, step into these countries, step into Cameroon today and sit around and listen to the political chatter. Go to other countries, name them, Guinea, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal. Listen to the political chatter and you will get an indication of what it could be if somebody were to make a decision to stay. Go to Uganda and listen. Just being around the atmosphere for some time, you will get the atmosphere. Now, if Uganda were to sneeze in the direction of Kenya, do you think that Kenya would catch the cold? From what we've seen, I personally don't think so. But do we see indications that perhaps that could happen?
Personally, as far as the executive is concerned, I wouldn't say there's a big danger into going to that direction. But then I'm looking at it in terms of the new perspective that has come in, as Eric pointed out, that we are looking at term limits in terms of the danger that we are facing in Kenya is at maybe county level where someone has served 2 terms, but again gets into another high level office, which goes against.
It's still a county office.
Yeah, it's still a county office or an influential office, which is against the principles or what term limits support. So that is the danger that I'm looking at but not at executive level.
Maliba, do you see a danger?
I think we are not even scratching the surface on that, because we are saying it and not saying it because of one reason. There is a case in Uasin Gishu. The former governor is the senator. There is you've seen those clips of a project that went Ori. The Canadian. I don't know what was the other country. Finland. See, the senator, he's now the senator, supposed to be oversighting the county government.
Yes.
He's sitting in places, what I would call barazas, to try and solve problems where people in that particular county have got issues with the county on a program that happened during his tenure
as governor.
So you already see how that becomes messy. That's too messy already. So exactly where does Manda go? How does he sit into it? It's a mess. It's a big one. But then there is a real danger, even here, for us actually working at the executive level, going back on terms or now the term limits. Number one, you see, what stopped BBI from happening? And like she said, she says that these things are normally incremental. If it were not for the courts, we would actually have gone to a referendum. And God knows that it was almost impossible for that referendum, if it had gone to the people,
to fail.
Already we were changing structurally, and a lot of times the bills, I said
incremental.
A lot of those things that were out there that were appealing to the people were, in my words, just icing on the cake. There was the BBI in the BBI.
There was the poison.
So it was deep in there, and it was about restructuring government so that then people were already talking. You remember when Yakub Salah, for example, might not be an insider, a UDA insider. He's not within the inside circle. He's not even a policy hawk within that particular space. Is that particular guy, the Fafi MP, is not one of those people you will see on the street. He's not so much Kenya Kwanza. But then even as he says that, just remember that in the just ended administration, people like Murade, who are insiders were saying that the law does not then stop a president from running as a deputy president. Remember that? They were talking about then doing the Kaputni thing we are talking about. So it's possible. It's not like it's not very far. And in our case, unfortunately, I have got a serious issue with CDF because today, if there's anything that can sneak in the term limits, is actually CDF.
It's the carrot.
And I'll demonstrate it this way. Number one, standing between the term limit are two things. Number one, you need 2/3 in parliament, and then you need a simple majority in a referendum.
True.
CDF has actually been used to manage parliament. So if we entrench CDF, it becomes much easier to manage the legislature. You will end up having that majority. If anyone had that idea, so for us, CDF is going to be that weak point. It is that little earthworm that needs to be killed now before it turns into a serpent. Because already it's sitting so badly on. It was our pilot project on devolution. It worked. Before CDF, we had district development boards and committees. They worked in their own way. So now that we've got devolution, CDF must completely be taken away from parliament for parliament to be parliament. If parliament is going to be the guardian of our democracy, it's one of those things that we should not pretend around. It's the easiest way. From where I sit,
it's a big issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel I do concur with what you're saying, and just to add why for me my observation also comes from how we manipulate the political party system. We don't have a very strong hold with political parties, and one of the ways you may not have the same president coming in, but we may have these political parties that then brings a different person, just replacing one on the other. And then whatever was happening, if it was a regime that is continued through the ruling political party dominance, then that is something we could worry about. And that's where we see the resistance is a bit. You could say it's weak maybe in Uganda because of that political party dominance. You may see another country where presidents are changing, but the dominance of the party remains. And that also affects. That's also a danger that we could see, because political parties, well, the constitution foresees them as channels for citizens' political engagement. In reality, they are not. There's an elite control of that. Secondly, maybe, and to take this point further by Maliba, is yes, for me, I get worried every time you'd expect the institutions that should be checking exercise of power becomes weaker and weaker. And part of the reasons why the case in court was to challenge the CDF being held by legislature is because it violates a very principle of the constitution on exercise of power, separation of power, and the ability of parliament to check on an executive. So we have these proposals that are still there, and for me it's quite worrying. For me, I feel anytime you see a proposal for constitutional amendments, I think the idea is look further. What will this do? And if we have now the CDF being protected through a constitutional amendment, then it means that it circumvents a court decision that was actually trying to reinforce a principle of the constitution. Then we introduced an oversight fund for Senate. Then we introduced something also for county assemblies at the county levels. What does that mean? That one, if we were to ever have an amendment that needs to go through all the, even if it's the amendment that requires the higher process of going through the counties and coming all the way to be ratified at the national level, there's a problem. And I think that should worry us. So for us, I think even as we discuss the issue of term limits, because earlier on we said it is not the only, when we look at the bigger picture, it should worry us when we see that a system of the constitutional arrangement where we have a parliament that is supposed to check on power, and we see that power being diluted, and eventually we reconsolidate. Or we also see a system where we have a devolved governance, but increasingly we keep on seeing funding being re-centralized, or funding being used to dilute the power that should be exercised at the county level. Then we should be worried, because all these different factors then have an impact on how will this power at the national level be exercised. And I think we should also be worried that even 11, 12 years later, we still have a very central presidency that the power has not devolved as we expect. And I think the idea is to go further and continue implementing what the constitution foresees on diluting, decentralizing power. But we have a situation of re-centralization of power. Yeah.
I'm still coming back into if our definition and the reason why we have term limits is so that we can check and control power and how long one wields that power, then why do we only limit it to those executive roles? Why not also on the legislative roles? Because this person who's in the executive office has been elected by the people, has been chosen by the people, but you're telling the people that you cannot elect this person more than 2 terms. But you are also telling the people you can elect so and so to represent you in parliament, to be the one that determines how you are taxed, to be the one that determines all these other things for as long as you feel like electing them. Why? You end up having people who will be in parliament for years and they just become the power barons. They're the ones who determine, okay, who gets into parliament. The conversation as it progresses into if Kenya should adopt a parliamentary system and you'd have members of parliament with no term limits, then basically what we're saying is we shall be having people who sit in parliament and they determine who becomes the head of the executive. They'll be the power barons. Should term limits be introduced to the legislative seats as well? Patricia.
I think we've seen that discussion also arising in other countries, like, for instance, the US. And I would say this is a discussion, again, for Kenyans. We can't sit here and say it should or should not. I think it's a discussion that should really go back to the people. And this would come in many ways, like the examples we've seen in Kenya, because the constitution sometimes does not foresee everything. But then also the way democracy is exercised and organically exercised, there are lessons to be drawn. Then if it becomes a legitimate concern for the people, then let the people also discuss about it and also decide about it.
Let the people decide.
Yeah.
So this report that you produced, it's a good report, and where can one access it if they would like to read it? Can they come to your website?
Yeah, so you can access the report or the publication on our website, that is www.katibainstitute.org. Yeah, under publications we have it. We have physical copies, so if someone is interested to get physical copies, they can get in contact with us. We have our contact details on our website.
Okay.
Then we can organize how they can get physical copies as well.
It's an important publication. It's good to have these conversations going. Thank you very much for joining us, both of you.
Thank you.
Kevin Mabonga, Head of Communications, and Patricia Joseph, who's the Program Manager at the Katiba Institute. Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. Good morning, 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The government plans to take full advantage of emerging information communications technologies to strengthen student success and quality of education. Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu says e-learning had the capacity to improve effective learning at all levels of education, apart from enabling the government to use information about education to maximize on investments it makes in education. He said the government should build the capacity of teachers and learners to make use of the ICT in the implementation of the curriculum. He said this when he met with President and Chief Executive Officer HPA Enrique Lores, who had paid a courtesy call in his office. Now, the opposition has now faulted the government over the newly unveiled university and colleges funding model, claiming that it has denied over 500,000 students an opportunity to continue with education. In a statement issued by the National Assembly Minority Leader Opionda, the opposition wants President William Ruto's government to suspend the new funding model, warning that it will increase college dropouts and increase fee burden to parents amidst the harsh economy. Citing over 600,000 KCSE candidates who missed a slot in the 2023 university intake, Wandai implores the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Services to open another review window so that the students can be absorbed into tertiary institutions. He attributes the situation to the high cost of application, which stands at 1,500, and the recent tuition fees for government institutions. And Cabinet has approved comprehensive overhaul of state-owned sugar companies, paving way for private sector participation and modernization. The government dropped plans to privatize state-owned sugar farms in the country following following sustained opposition from various stakeholders in the sugar belt region. The ailing state millers that had been earmarked for privatization include Nzoia Sugar Company, Chemelil Sugar Company, Miwani Sugar Company, in receivership, Muhoroni Sugar Company also in receivership, South Nyanza Sugar Company and Mumias Sugar Company also in receivership. And Michael Joseph has resigned as a director on the board of telecommunications giant Safaricom. Joseph's resignation from the telco was announced by Safaricom board, which indicated that he had stepped down to focus on other ventures, including his current role as chairman of Kenya Airways. Michael Joseph was the founding CEO of Safaricom. He has served in various capacities at the organization since 2000, including being the general manager, chief executive officer, director, as well as chairman of the board. He also served as a member of the and chairman of various committees of the board. Now, a Malindi High Court judge has recused himself from a matter involving the ownership of the Salama Beach Hotel. Justice Stephen Githinji was compelled to make the move after being accused of gross misconduct and breach of the oath of office. An application filed by the deposed director of the hotel, Stefano Lucelli, said he had lost faith in the judge and was apprehensive that Githinji might be biased in his ruling. Lucelli had claimed that the judge had met with Isaac Rodrot, who is also in the case, and his lawyer at a bar where all High Court cases were discussed. A family in Wa area of Kwale County is demanding justice following the death of their kin at the hands of traffic police in Salama, Makueni County. Mohammed Masood, a truck driver, is said to have met his end after allegedly being hit with a blunt object by police officers manning a roadblock in Salama area following an altercation. He was en route to Mombasa from Tororo in Tanzania when the incident occurred. Masood's family is, however, convinced that the police are to blame for the king's death, with postmortem results showing that he died due to head trauma caused by a blunt object. And the government will enroll new members under the Inua Jamii Cash Transfer Program starting September 1st, 2023 to cater for deserving vulnerable Kenyans. Currently, the Inua Jamii program benefits over 1.2 million Kenyans, including 353,000 orphans and vulnerable children, 833,129 elderly citizens, 47,000 persons with severe disabilities. Last month, President William Ruto directed State Department of Social Protection to ensure that beneficiaries receive their money on the 15th of every month. This is after the government delayed releasing the money for 8 months, leading to hue and cry from beneficiaries who solely depend on the kitty for their upkeep and basic needs. And finally, a 74-year-old German national has been jailed for 81 years after being found guilty of child pornography and child trafficking. Thomas Scheller was convicted of 7 offences after the court found him guilty. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's a few minutes after 8 o'clock and we're actually 9 o'clock. Wow, how time flies. And traffic also disappears as it gets closer to towards 9:30. We're in the middle of traffic hour and that still continues. A little bit of it coming in then at the Pangani underpass. And we're also looking at it still heavy on Wayaki Way as you get out towards Westlands. And Chiromo is busy in and outbound. We're looking at the same thing on James Gishoro. It's going to continue for some time from all we can see. But towards the CBDs where all roads lead this morning. Let's take a look at Jogo Road. Is that getting better? It is. And it's starting to reduce significantly. Uhuru Highway is busy as you get towards the city centre. And on North Airport Road, there was traffic coming in from Cabanas going out towards Outer Ring. There's a little bit of that still left, and then through towards the Eastern Bypass. All in good time, folks. It'll get better. Spice FM KE on Twitter. Let's look there and keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room. a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room. Witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
After 9, we are on to the final hour of the Situation Room this morning. Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh, our guest host, Maliba Arnold, public policy analysts. You said you're a governance technician.
No, I just said that a public policy analyst is simply, or a public policy person is simply a government technician.
Government or governance?
Government.
Government.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Makanika Agawa.
I knew it. I was waiting.
You know, sub-editors in the newsroom are the word technicians.
Yeah.
So policy people are normally just the organizational technicians, the government technicians. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. It makes sense. Are you preparing to run in October? Because you should. The 20th edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon will be going down on the 29th of October in Nairobi, in Mombasa, in where else? It has happened in Kisumu, in Kakamega.
Yes.
The Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon is not just a Nairobi affair anymore. It's actually become a global affair because there's also a virtual run that takes place the week before that main day. So, you want to participate in this year's 20th edition? Please register today with only 2,000 bob. Go to nairobimarathon.com, follow the prompts, pay, and you will be all set to take part in this year's Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. The process go towards where, Ndu?
The future learners. Future makers, sorry.
The future makers.
Yes.
Which is helping young girls and persons with disability.
Absolutely.
And all these processes are going there. It's a beautiful program by Standard Chartered.
Indeed.
Hey.
You know, when Eric said, "Are you prepared to run?" I wanted him to qualify it. Of course, we understand because
for office.
Because the last time I ran, nilikimbizwa kimbi.
That was the problem. In fact, up to date, I still see Boda guys wearing the Arnold Maliba reflector jackets. Vote Arnold Maliba. I'm like, hey, jina yako.
So,
your name precedes you.
Nilikimbia kimbi.
Or your name outlasted the race.
Ordinarily nowadays I'm bigger. Long time ago the name was bigger. When guys will see me, I was slightly bigger than Mr. Kange. So guys will be like, niwewe. So, but
what's
God has
Kimbi,
been good.
Kimbi?
I don't know. Well, as in, it's not really a word that exists out there, but somebody someplace came up with it and it makes sense. You know, language is very dynamic.
I agree.
Yeah. So, like I said, last time I ran, nilikimbizwa kimbi. By the way, just for a minute, it's important to say this, that we were 14 of us. The winner was Beatrice Elachi. Let us celebrate women who won. And she got 75% of the votes. The rest of us, the 13 of us,
you shared the remaining.
There was stiff competition in the 25% that was left. Hapo tulikuwa tunakimbia kimbi hapo ndani 25%. But when you run the Standard Chartered Marathon, I think everybody is a winner at the end of the day.
Better chances of
yeah. You know, Arnold, even you're a winner.
Well, not in that one.
Even in that kimbi. Even in that kimbi one, you are still a winner. So you got at least more than one vote, more than your vote.
That is the first time
There's somebody else
I got less than 3,000 votes for the first time in my life. So it's not easy.
Yeah. So there are 3,000 people who actually believed what you.
No, I'm saying for the first time.
Yeah. I'm saying there's at least 3,000 people who are behind your quest for leadership. It's a good thing.
That kind of encouragement is not.
It's a good thing.
It's not the one you like.
It's a good thing.
It's not the one I'm willing to take this morning.
You to come back. Okay, let's have a conversation around health. And we have a guest who's joining us now. McDonald Kange is the general manager for medical at CIC Group. Good morning, McDonald.
Good morning, Eric. How are you doing?
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Asante sana.
Yeah, no, smile. This man is healthy. Has a healthy smile.
We have to live to the name.
Bus.
Yes.
This is it.
Yeah.
This is it. Kenya's biggest conversation is hosting McDonald Kange. So we can talk about the cost of healthcare, why comprehensive health insurance is important, and why we should think about it. We'll talk about all these things, and we have very many questions. When you talk about comprehensive, what exactly it means, but let me welcome you with the day's proverb. It's from the countries of Niger, Mali, or Burkina Faso. It says, bad things come to one's mother. Good things will also come to her. Bad things come to one's mother. Good things will also come to her. What's your interpretation of that proverb, McDonald?
An interesting choice of countries to pick the proverb from.
Yes.
But it's good things come to the mother, you say.
Bad things come to the mother, but good things will also come to the mother.
At least they don't introduce the father yet. That means taking responsibility. Sounds like taking responsibility for the good that happens to you, for the bad that happens to you. You can't just take credit for just what is good. And it's good, it's the mother. They seem many times to do many good things. And mentioned for few or less, bad things.
Yeah. It's also one way of basically being told that when you are sitting there and you're seeing bad things happening to somebody's mother, all right, and you're thinking, surely, just remember that good things will also happen to that somebody's mother. So don't just sit there and laugh at them now because of what is happening to them. Just know it's a cycle.
Indeed.
The good things will also come to the mother.
Yeah, I think humanly we like taking responsibility for the good. Yeah, and it's good that we appreciate that the mother, who can be having a challenge now, might also have an opportunity and a good thing happening.
Very good.
Yeah.
CIC Group. Okay, we've seen it many times. But just tell us about CIC Group. Who is CIC Group? Previously, it used to have the whole full name of CIC, but now it's just CIC Group.
CIC now is a full name. It's a group of companies. It's a financial institution company. And CIC has a very rich heritage, because CIC has a rich heritage with the cooperative movement. That was one of the C's before.
We used to call it cooperative insurance.
An acronym.
Yes.
And I don't know, Eric, whether you know how strong the cooperative movement is in the country. It's now what owns the majority of CIC, which is a listed company. And in this group of companies, we seek to secure your financial needs, be it insurance, like a building like this one, which is either short-term or what we call long-term, like pensions, life, and all that. But you'll also be very interested to know that we do very well in investing your money, taking care of your investments, like our money market. It's a good way of ensuring that your money is beating the inflation that we're doing at return rates of almost 10%. Interest rate, which is a good thing. That's what makes us a group of companies operating here in Kenya. We like to say we want to keep our word here in Kenya, in Malawi, in Tanzania, in South Sudan, and continuously expanding. That's the CIC Group.
You spoke about heritage.
Yes.
So take us back through that historical journey. When was CIC as we know it today? When was it founded, and by whom?
It's actually a beautiful story, because CIC started as an insurance agency by the cooperative movement. And we are talking 52 years or so. That's 1968. Then grew into what was now called cooperative insurance. Later in the years, with changes in regulation that required split in the business, if you're doing long-term, short-term, now we had to have CIC Life, which would take care of your let's say pension, your life insurance, education policy, and then CIC General, and that's where the space within which I am. The difference between the life and what we call general insurance is the length of the contract. So for general, it's basically short-term, 1-year contract, and then you renew it. And then later into now managing investments, which we have a very fancy name. We call ourselves CICAM, CIC Assets Management. Yes.
How does that kick 'em?
CICAM.
So it's CICAM.
Yes.
Because I've seen that word and that name, but okay.
All right, so obviously there are different kinds of, necessary to understand what then is important for folks to know what is available when it comes to coverage insurance-wise. We're going to focus on health insurance today.
Yes.
And usually we think, okay, you pay a little bit of something every month, and then if in the unfortunate circumstance you get ill, it's paid for. Or if you have an accident, it's paid for. And it sounds like that's it. Is it more complicated than that?
Thank you, Do, for that question. And it's a very interesting and, in a great way, right way of describing it. Maybe with some more information. Insurance is not as complicated as we think it is. When you walk to a shop and you want to buy sugar and you give out that money, that's what we call a price. In insurance, it's only that now what is a price when you're buying sugar, we call it premium. And now when you give out that premium, it gives you access to a certain benefit. For example, you give me 10,000 and I will say, in the unfortunate event that you are unwell, then I will pay your bills to a certain point. And here, the arrangement we have in Kenya actually works for us because you don't have to walk around with cash if you're insured. You show up at the facility and then they would be able to treat you based on the credit arrangements that we have with them.
Why is it important? Because we talk about let's start with that. Why is it important? Then I'll come into the other parts of the question.
Insurance is very important because Eric, the statistics show, for example, the average income of a Kenyan is around 20,000 shillings, which means
monthly income.
Yeah, monthly income is 20,000 shillings. And that means, for example, a hospital bill of 25,000 shillings is more than my month's income. If I pay that bill, I will not have a way of paying for my rent. And in the bigger context of things, those people with that level of income are the bigger number. Insurance now ensures some sort of security that in the event that, God forbid, I am unwell, I can worry about the food, but I don't need to worry about the bill. But more important is the quality of care that people are able to access. Statistics show that people who have some sort of financing like insurance tend to access higher quality of care than those people who have who do what we call out-of-pocket payment. And it's simple. I'm a Kenyan. If I feel like I have a cough and I have 5,000 shillings in my pocket, at that particular point, there will be a competition of that 5,000 shillings between my fare and my seeking healthcare. I might end up at a pharmacy instead of seeing a doctor. But if I don't have to worry about that at that particular point, then I'm likely to see a doctor and they are able to maybe catch whatever could be ailing me when it is still early. And that's the importance of insurance. I think the assurance of that security, because lack of insurance can be very destabilizing in terms of having insurance can be your security from poverty, that you today you're in good health, God forbid you get into an unfortunate incident, you have a 10 million bill, then now becomes, then what happens next? You get.
So with all these things that are known and that they are obvious, right? Because almost everybody has had to deal with a medical bill
Yes.
at some point,
Yes.
right? Why is insurance uptake so low in this country?
Thank you. I think...
and actually, what is the uptake?
The statistics point to around 3%, and let's see how we compare actually with the other countries. I think in Africa, South Africa leads with 9 or so percent, with their coverage for, say, funeral plans being very high. A place South Africa, what we have in WhatsApp groups many times is covered through
insurance.
But that 3% is some sort of progress, because a few years ago we were at 1.3%. So the regulator actually is also doing a lot of work around that area. The Bima Mashinani campaigns to explain this to people. Fortunately or unfortunately, you get to test insurance when the unfortunate happens. So if you have a card, you get to use it if you get admitted. And so there has been a lot of effort towards now educating members to the public on why it is important and to drive these numbers high. For example, at CIC, every single month we have an engagement. As I said, we have a rich heritage with the cooperative movement. And so we get to meet SACCOs and all that. And in these forums, we educate the members on the need for insurance. And I'll give you an example. When you go to, hypothetically, central Kenya, some place where they keep dairy cattle, and you'll get the farmer has an elaborate plan around the cow. Yeah? So when I take my milk and I deliver it, for example, they would deduct some amount. Should the cow get sick, our SACCO or our cooperative would send a vet. But now when I get sick, I sell the cow to pay the bill, which now hurts my livelihood. And so the things we are doing is educating members to just ensure that they are secured on such matters, to ensure that in the event of that you get sick or you need your property, it could be your business, where you're doing your business, because insurance is not just medical. Is your shop insured in case of thugs breaking in? Does it, if they clear your stock, can you present a claim to an insurance company and you get paid?
Well, for me, the whole idea about insurance is just about indemnity. That I'm trying to indemnify myself against any element on that rainy day. So my first question, of course, would be on this is a user experience informed question. Somehow, from going around hospitals, I have realized that insurance guys are so much about fraud prevention as opposed to facilitating service delivery, where you take a lot of time chasing approvals. You could even die in halls in hospital, and somehow there are always downtime in the system. No one is speaking, no one has responded. So you feel like the insurance or at the operational level, there's too much premium on fraud prevention and very little effort on service delivery. I really don't know. Looks like somebody's elected to deliver service, but then he chooses to become EACC, so he fights corruption instead of delivering. I'm not saying like somebody was elected sometimes back and did that, but sometimes that is how. Sometimes that's how you view insurance, because you take a lot of time with them trying to check and so much of fraud prevention. And service delivery is not one of those things that are prioritized. Why does it look that to so many people walking around hospital halls?
I think one of the things that, and thanks Bwana Maliba for the question, as you put it, there sometimes have been that feeling. But even as an industry, one of the things that we have been doing, as I said, is this education on how insurance works. That when I show up at the hospital, for example, I understand and appreciate the process. But even by law, for example, if you show up at a facility, the first thing you need to get is treatment. And to ensure that you don't show up and you're being asked, wait until we call the insurance or wait until we call the CIC, we have made some significant investment in ensuring the processes are customer centric. That today as Kangi, if I show up at providers and I have had an accident, I'll be treated and they can notify the insurance 24 hours later. So that's a process that ensures the experience at the point of using the service is pleasant. Remember, out of the many people who are insured, 80% access services that are outpatient in nature. You walk in, you walk out.
Yeah.
And that process is many times very, very seamless. You present your card, you are attended to, and you walk out. The same thing for inpatient. There is continuous engagement. Is fraud management an important thing? I think yes, it is, but it should not override the experience that you have, because what you want to ensure, this fraud management is not just for the insurance, because you as a member, as an insured Bwana Maliba, and you could be insured for 1 million. I also want to ensure that no one is taking advantage of that 1 million. Because if you can use it, say you only need to use 500, quality care, not compromised, quality care. It still gives you a chance to access care on a future date. And so it's to ensure that all those processes that lengthen your benefit, all those processes that are focused on the customer, and the experience is pleasant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, why do you think
yes
that most people don't take up medical insurance?
Interesting, because and I think statistically we have some space to cover in terms of just getting everyone insured, which makes the discussion on universal health coverage very, very important at whatever level, at private sector level, at government level, so that everyone has some sort of healthcare financing. And why I think many people are still not insured, it's a myriad of factors. There's always the question of just pure affordability, not to mean it's not affordable, because even some social insurance costs as little as 500 bob. I'm not saying 500 bob is not high, but it is sort of reasonable. But so there is a question of our economic ability, where we are placed as a people, but there is also the question of awareness.
Yes.
And that's the big one. And that's why I was talking about ensuring that if I meet Bwana Maliba, I can explain to him why insurance is a good thing. Because for all of us here, statistically the four of us, if I asked, is any one of us here in a funeral group? There's a possibility. One, in a WhatsApp. You know what they call black tax?
Yep.
That you're paying for it in an indirect way. So in a way we end up paying, but we need to create that awareness.
Sure.
That today, if I meet Eric and he has a bill, for example, for hospital, God forbid, which is not able to pay, and Eric invites me to his WhatsApp, I also want to have this conversation on why there is another option. That you could have gotten some sort of coverage one way or the other, so that you don't also make unnecessarily push a burden to people when you can take care of it. And of course it's not you know, in the country you can't have a car on the road without insurance. But you can have a human body on the road
without insurance.
It's likened to the reasons why people don't seek healthcare. The same reason why people don't seek healthcare is the same reason, or rather, the reason can be shared as to why they don't seek healthcare. If I am not sick, if something is not hurting, if I am standing up, I'm walking from point A to B, why should I go and see a doctor? It's the same reason as per, I'm not going to be in an accident today. I'm not going to fall sick. So why should I pay anticipating that something is going to happen? So in arriving at a solution, it's necessary to look at the problem, isn't it?
Yes.
So we say, okay, we want to get as many people covered as possible. These are the reasons why they're not being covered. Because truth be told, that even the most vulnerable person who says 500 shillings is a lot, you will find that should something happen to their loved ones or themselves, they will spend a lot more than that 500 shillings for them in hospital. So how about we start thinking about, okay, what is it that we can say to people for them to understand that you're getting an umbrella in case
of a rainy day? I have a different view. That it's not because people do not understand the need for taking up insurance.
On the priority list, it is not up there.
And why is it not a priority list? It's because of what these people do to us. These ones who take our money. I'll tell you about it after this break. It's 28 minutes to 10. We are hosting this morning Kangai McDonald. He is the general manager for medical at CIC Group. Cost of healthcare. Why comprehensive healthcare insurance is important. That's our conversation. It's holiday season, no?
Yes, it is. And GoTV is saying there is something for everybody. For those who are children and those who identify as children. So, choose your thing.
Trans children.
Yeah, exactly. Pan children. Okay, so it's the holiday season. Adventures like Zico G are on GoTV and in Plenty. We are not leaving anyone behind because we have good programs for children of all ages. You hear that? Children of all ages. We've got you covered like that. If you have a preteen in the house, they can enjoy The Adventures of Ladybug and Cat Noir. Teenagers can enjoy superheroes like Miraculous. The shows air every weekday at 4:15 on the Disney Channel. You can also enjoy The Adventures of Henry Danger every Saturday and Sunday at 1:30 p.m. on Nickelodeon Channel 87 on GoTV. Download the GoTV app or dial *423# and stay connected to all the fun.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Hey guys, now that we are going on holiday, what are your holiday plans?
The way my parents keep saying hakuna pesa.
This year ni kukiwa na plan yoyote.
Mimi I'm sure we are going to Ocha kama kawaida, lakini at least tunakuanga na stima na wifi. So I'm okay. What about you, Kajana? What is your plan for the holidays?
Well, me I'm going to see the world.
See the world?
Yeah, my parents have paid for DSTV, so I'm off to see the world. Later, dudes.
It's a wonder-filled world on DSTV with the greatest kids content on the continent. Feel all the adventure and fun with more than 20 dedicated channels and a world of kids shows and movies that promote learning while entertaining and inspiring their boundless imaginations. Dial *423# or download my DSTV app to get or stay connected to DSTV.
Oh, finally! It's my Standard Courier delivery.
At Standard Courier, we know that your time is valuable. That's why we guarantee swift and efficient deliveries to your doorstep every time. Give us a call on 0793 599 684 or schedule your next delivery by visiting our website www.standardmedia.co.ke/courier. Trust Standard Courier service for all your courier needs. We deliver with pride.
Okay, cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 12. It's 13 degrees that will be the low in a sunny Nakuru, currently at 19. And it's 16 and sunny in Nyeri, highs of 21 and lows of 13. We'll see lows of 12 in a sunny Eldoret at 18, going to highs of 23. Mostly cloudy at 26 in Mombasa, highs of 29. And we'll see highs of 29 as well in a cloudy Malindi at 26, 14 and 24 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 29. It's 24 and sunny as well in Kakamega, going to highs of 28. Kampala is sunny at 24. Dar es Salaam is sunny at 27. 12 degrees and mostly sunny in Johannesburg, and we'll see mostly cloudy conditions in Lagos at 25. It's 23 and sunny in Kinshasa. Let's look over into Beijing, where it's sunny at 32 Wednesday afternoon. That'll be today's high. 17 and partly sunny in Paris, and 14 and mostly sunny in London. 23 and clear still Tuesday night in New York. Coming into Wednesday, we'll see highs of 30 and lows of 21.
Spice up your life.
Not been too wild of a ride this Wednesday, and traffic more or less has come to an end. It looks good in most parts this morning. There's still a little bit left of it on Gong Road as you're trying to get into the city, but it's manageable, so you should be fine. On the Eastern Bypass, traffic going out towards Rai, coming into North Airport Road, so we'll see a little bit of that here and there. Thika Superhighway, much better now. Go about your business, folks, and be careful while you do it. Let's talk through the morning on Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The GM for medical at CIC Group. We are talking about the importance of comprehensive health insurance, and we're talking about the need for more and more people to actually take up insurance and to see the need for insurance. But let's now talk about the other side. Okay, the insurance service providers and how you package your products. So yes, it's a health insurance. You have comprehensive health insurance, and you have all these other various products and how you package them. Some of these challenges: number one, take up insurance and there's a dotted line. Are you immediately covered for some chronic ailments? And then there's a line of pre-existing conditions that comes in. There are some insurance companies, I don't know whether it's all of them, that would say that for you to qualify for this insurance policy to actually take care of you, should you be diagnosed with a chronic ailment, you have to have been a regular contributor for 3 consecutive years. And by consecutive, they mean if it ends on the 9th of August, you renew by the 9th of August. If you go to renew on the 11th of August, we start from square one. So why bring in so many barriers into insurance? Why does a policy have to be 1 year long?
Okay.
Can there be a monthly policy? Why do the premiums have to be the way they are? Can there be other ways of having these premiums? Okay. Why is there so much rigidity in this industry?
That's an interesting question, Eric. And maybe just for context, I think you started with the pre-existing.
What are those, Kwanzaa?
Insurance has continuously evolved. I think up around in the early 2000s, when you went to apply for insurance and you made some disclosures that I have diabetes, I have hypertension, and all that, as long as you've ticked that in the form, God forbid if you said you had HIV, because you remember back in the day it was still a big thing. I'm not saying it's not.
Yeah.
But if you ticked any of those back in the day, you would quickly get your check back. In fact, it at some point felt like being admitted to the Ivy League of schools when you got that policy. But with the support of the regulator, there has been some progress that you don't necessarily have not to be covered just because you have a pre-existing condition. Does it mean you cannot? The answer is it doesn't mean you cannot. As a matter of fact, more people die from accidents than from pre-existing conditions. And so what we have done is, over time, ensure that we are responsive to the needs. So the first thing is, yes, you get covered. Is it to the full limit? It depends with your policy. So what I would encourage many of us to do is to appreciate the detail of your policy. That I might have a cover for 1 million shillings, but my pre-existing has a limit of 500. Why do we want to do that? It is ensuring that we balance off the benefit that we are giving and the premium, and that you don't give a cover and then tomorrow the company also doesn't exist. The country has had a history of some insurances going under because of performance, but we are all past that. So pre-existing now, you'll hardly get back your money because you have a pre-existing condition. It's covered. You did ask about, I think it's what we call waiting time, that I have a waiting time. But for some context, what type of policies do we have in this country? So we have, by and large, 2 bigger categories. Me as an individual, I can buy for myself, and if I have a family, for my family, or my employer can buy for us as a group, which means it's many people together.
Yeah.
When it's many people together, it means we could be 100, and we are not buying because we are sick. It's just there is an
insurance.
Today I might be sick, but there will be 99 others who are not. Which means when on a balance of things, you can be able to pay. Because the most important thing is to ensure sustainability. One of the things to avoid is to give a product which you will pull out because it's not sustainable, because it hurts the confidence of the populace. And so when it is a corporate, today, Eric, when I get you covered with CIC, I hope I sign the contract, you will not need to wait for anything because you're a group and the risk is well spread out. You can access chronic treatment, you can access what we call acute treatment. God forbid if it's you can access.
Okay.
All right? But when now to an individual, and it's not as punitive because once you have been insured, many times it's just what we call a limited waiting period, and it's to just also safeguard that it's not just the sick who are buying. Remember, we are human beings. I could be here with Bwana Maliba and he needs a surgery tomorrow. He comes today,
signs up, pays a small premium,
pays 100K. Tomorrow he's in
hospital with a bill of 5 million.
A bill of 5 million. So it's just some safeguards to ensure that people are insured. But there's such good progress in that space because I think in the industry now, we are having hundreds of thousands, the individuals who are actually buying insurance. At CIC, we see that as our fastest growing segment, where now, because remember, there is a change in how we do things. People are leaving work not to change jobs, but just to do their own thing. But I still want to enjoy a cover the level that I was enjoying. So that's some of the progress that we're making.
We also operate in a bite-sized economy, don't we? A lot of folks,
it's kadogo.
Yeah, it's that kadogo economy. If I were to apply, if I bought a plane ticket today to Paris, I would need travel insurance, right? It's not something I do regularly.
Yes.
But I pay $20, $50. I get insurance. If anything should happen over there while this happens, I'm covered, right?
For X days.
For X number of days.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And it's doable. It's done the world over. Would it be feasible to have that kind of insurance in Kenya, whereby people then are the fear of something might happen with this money that I've paid then is removed because somebody knows, all right, I can pay chunks of insurance 3 months and surgery, for example, is coming up. So I've paid for, in smaller bits and then allows it to cover for something.
Yeah.
Is that possible? I know I have surgery in 3 months. Can I pay insurance for 3 months and then get treated and then we see about me doing it later? Is that something that would be considered, and if not, why?
I think that's an area of progress that we just have to, because as you mentioned it's the kadogo economy. It could be 100K and I am able to pay 30 million, and in terms of investing in innovatively to products that respond to that need, because the response to that question is the same reason why we don't sell sugar to everyone for 1 kg. I want to buy a quarter kg because that's what I can afford. And I think that's the question. And that's a space that we are, of course, now looking into because we are working towards ensuring that everyone is able to afford. If you're not able to afford because it's too much and I earn my money in a particular manner, because I might be a contractor, it's what I have, that we have a solution for that. And if you're not able to afford because you feel it's a lot, then what do we do? And I'll tell you, Eric, for example, we have a product where an inpatient cover for a certain limit is 2,500. And this is out of the feedback we would get when we engage with our cooperative movement. The same example I was giving, that now I'm sick, I've sold my cow. How can I avoid selling my cow? So, number one, we have now the insurance for the cow itself.
Yep.
If the cow dies, you bring a claim and tell me my cow was called Rachel. She died, and I give you your 75,000. It was a Fresian cow. But then again, if you also now became unwell, I'll tell you, then you can go to the facility for 2,500. So that the whole ecosystem is well taken care of in terms of, because let's look at it, the whole industry is insuring just upwards of 2 million lives, right? Throw in the social insurer, we can still say 70% of us have no sort of insurance.
Yes.
So the potential that there is huge. We have to think about, if we have 55 million and just around 15 million are insured, surely we have to think about these 30 million guys.
Yep.
And in that 30 million guys, I think it's what Ndu is saying, there is one who can pay in a quarterly or in a month, in some sort of way.
Some staggered manner.
In some staggered manner. And those are areas that we are definitely...
And even if you think about it, a majority of hospital visits are outpatient hospital visits.
Yes.
How many insurance products do we have that are specific to outpatient and not including inpatient? Because then if you had such a product and so I have my outpatient policy and this one goes up to 5,000 shillings, I know what's the likelihood that I'm going to actually spend more than 5,000, So you allow those smaller, like Ndu is saying, bite-sized products to come into the market. So you get more people seeing this makes sense to me and it can work for me. Even my income, my everything, I can afford this one. At least when that person goes to hospital, they are not thinking of today my family will not eat today because I went to hospital and I was told go and do some tests that cost 500 bob, and then you buy some medicine that costs 250. That is 750 bob. That's 750. If I take 750, my children will not eat. But you see, that's 750.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about, the rigidity of the insurance sector, that it's still so fixated on the corporate sector that it has not been thinking about the lower cadres, where that's where the majority of the people are, Arnold.
Actually, just to build on that, I think the questions here for the last couple of minutes have revolved around product innovation. And I think the challenge for me, from where I see it, and that would be a question I will really love to hear from you, is that I don't know what the data says, but looks like the insurance actors are so much focused on low-lying fruits. The corporate side can easily put in the money.
And there's a law, there's a law that says that you must provide health care for your workers.
So those are so quick to go around by. So I don't know how the sector works, but I know that as a country, we are a sick country. People are not going to hospital not because they are well. People are not going to hospital because, number one, they can't afford. But we have got people that are sick. And the product, specifically, since we're talking about health insurance, the product we're offering is the health insurance. Is a social product. And that is why then I go back to what you said, that CIC has got its roots in the cooperatives movement. So it's actually tapping, the origin is actually tapping in the pooling power, that when we come together, we are able to work around that. But there are very few products flexible enough that actually are tapping into the informal sector. We agree that the informal sector is now the leading job creator. And it's been so for the last about 30 years, because I'm told the informal sector overtook the formal sector in 1992. Yet, up to today, we still do not have vibrant market-facing products that target that particular sector. Two, I'm yet to meet a health insurance facility that would be as graduated as what we see today in the motor vehicle industry. Today, I can actually pay my car insurance for a month. But every time I've gone to check around my insurance, my health insurance, I'm either paying the whole of it or I'll not have it.
Yes.
So why is it that my
Being
car
on and waiting for maybe a while before you can access
so why is it that for my car, which actually is much more prone to an accident because I'm moving, and I'm moving in Kenya and Nairobi roads, for example, more than I would be sick, actually. But for the car, I actually can pay monthly.
Yeah.
But for the health insurance, it's so difficult. What is the data saying that is forcing you guys to actually focus on what I want to refer to as low-lying fruits?
Very interesting question. And maybe just to contextualize it, because you ask about data, what progress has been made? I think I remember 5 years ago, for every 100 people that were insured by private insurance, only 5 were individuals. I think now that statistic is leaning towards 15 or thereabouts. And is the corporate sector just the low-lying fruit? To some extent, it is, but not the lowest lying fruit. Because statistically, if you look at it, there are very few what we call SMEs that have graduated into big corporates.
Yeah.
Because our economy is also growing at a certain pace. But there are many individuals who have graduated from thousandaires to millionaires. And those are the guys we want to target. And the response would basically be around innovation around products. There is definitely a case to look at the ability to pay. But let's step a bit back. Your ability to pay the motor insurance for a month. I don't know whether you know it, but right now you can't insure your car twice. Something that used to happen. You insure it here and there, and you can claim everywhere. If you try to raise a certificate, you will be told the car is insured. So there's a bit of investment in terms of technology to enable some of those things, which is progress that we are making. Remember, I was saying how you would get your checks back when you apply for insurance. Outside the pre-existing, for example, was when you become a senior. To mean you've retired. It was now
you are a risk.
You are condemned. So sort of. So you finish your job, and then that point is when you need health insurance.
Yes.
Because of course at a certain age the risk factors are higher. And a response to that, for example, 2 years ago, we launched a seniors product, which allows you to join from 60 years, and you can join if you are 79 years, up to 80 years. But as long as you join, and you live for, like Methuselah, he lived for 900 years, you are insured. You get.
And you pay once.
You pay every year, as
you have to keep renewing.
You keep renewing.
Right.
But we are telling you, if we have a Kenyan who will have
as
been
long
insured,
as your entry was between 60 and 79.
Yes.
You are okay.
If we'll have a Kenyan who will have joined insurance today at 79, and the next 100 years, God blesses them with good life. At 179, they would still be insured. There is no exit. And that now responds to, because what we want to do is ensure that I might have a cover with my employer, but when my parent gets sick, now it becomes my burden.
Yeah.
Now I want to shift that. And that responds to ensuring that we are not just tapping the low-lying fruit. And it speaks to, I think the best example I like is when you drive along Jogoo just before you get to the country bus. You know, the blacksmiths, the guys who are hitting that metal. And you know, maybe someone owns a number of those. I'm not a big corporate, but I have some few employees. And one of the things that we've done is to also have what we call micro insurance. That a person who doesn't even have 10 employees, either you are an SME of 3 people, or you're saying, this is what I can afford. Then we are able to tailor make that based on what you can afford, to just respond not to the guys where I looked for a job because I know one of the packages is medical. Yeah.
But 3% for the country still feel it's too small.
It's quite low.
It's quite low, and I'm wondering, what did the banking sector do at a time when being banked was almost, using your words, an Ivy League privilege? Today, by the way, it still feels quite privileged to have a medical insurance.
Yes.
People who move around with cards in hospitals look like people who are carrying iPhones at airports. It almost looks like it's a status thing. Just like owning a car and now carrying a gun, now also carrying a card. Why haven't that sector found ways of actually penetrating? Because I still feel our power to pay, if the banking sector is anything to go by, because the banking sector is a reflection of our health, of our economic health. If the banking sector, vibrant as it is anything, it points that probably the sector hasn't really thought about products. Of course, you've mentioned a few that really are easy for people to reach out. I keep on seeing a few being introduced and then they are pulled out. That's why I actually was asking for data. Is it that the sector is risk averse, or are we as a people very risky?
Okay. I don't think we as a people are very risky. But if we step back on where we are coming from, because, for example, health, a health insurance, you sell a promise, and then a provider, by way of hospital, a doctor actualizes this promise. And we have to see as a country the progress that we've made in terms of the capacity development. And it could sound simple, but a few years ago, doctors were only being trained in 2 hospitals. In two universities. So the cohorts that you would release into the market were so limited. Think about it, we still have some counties where it's news when they perform their first C-section. Many years later. And remember, those are the supporting aspects of, but the government has done a lot of work in investing. I remember I was doing a study at some point, and before Mama Lucy Hospital was opened, for years there had not been a new facility. Not just 5, almost 10 years. But there had not been a new investment
Nairobi
infrastructure. And those are the things that support. We still have some parts of this country, for example, where access to healthcare is still miles and miles away. People have to drive. So even if I tell you buy insurance, but the nearest hospital is 200, on a balance of things, you would take your risk. So there is that infrastructural and capacity investment, because now we have almost 10 universities that are graduating doctors. We have even private
KMTCs that are now
KMTCs at a good level. We have people who are interested in, forget government, in investing in healthcare facilities. I think if you look at the clinics that are coming up in the hospitals, and those are enablers in the provision of insurance. And then which takes us to the next level. Remember, like 20 years ago, bodabodas were few. Now there are many. Those are consumers of insurance. And cars were few. Now there are many. Those are consumers. So the growth in economy also speaks to the levels. But Kenya ranks around number 4 in Africa in terms of penetration.
Penetration of health insurance.
But it's a competition among dwarfs if we're talking about 3%.
Unfortunately.
But we thank you very much for joining us today, McDonald. I think we need to continue having these conversations.
Absolutely.
It's important for us to open up our minds on what insurance is. And the importance of insurance.
Thank you very much.
McDonald Kange is the General Manager for Medical at CIC Group. He's been here to talk about cost of healthcare and why comprehensive health insurance is important. Kenya's biggest conversation today. Thank you to Maliba Arnold for joining us today on this day as you commemorate what you were doing. Did you have agents? Or you like those other people of your party? Okay, that's a conversation for another day. Have a lovely one.
That question is a regular one.
He will also commission a Rumuru Hospital in Kieni and Karimenu Water Project at Ngoingwa in Thika. Ruto has been in the region for the past 5 days where he launched development projects. Now, Kenya Kwanza and